There's a guy canvassing for Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis in Florida, and he was mercilessly beaten. That's what Marco Rubio reports. And now we have some more confirmation on this individual. Apparently, it was in a Democrat county when 4 individuals said, "You are not welcome here," and then mercilessly beat him to the point where he's got internal bleeding. He's going to need facial reconstructive surgery. And it's a pretty crazy story. The response we've seen from the left is that they're saying this guy is apparently associated with fascists. And we have a report from, I believe it's Miami Times, talking about how he's posted a bunch of racist and offensive things. And it's interesting because seeing someone go out and canvass for politically and then to be mercilessly beaten, and the response is he's a bad guy. And I'm like, well, I'd agree. Those opinions are really awful, the things he was saying. Is that supposed to wash away or justify the fact that he's going to need facial reconstructive surgery? He's got internal bleeding and the violence is escalating to an extreme degree. This is crazy stuff, man. And I'll tell you why they're so threatened by him. We just finished watching, as many of you may have, the debate between DeSantis and Cruz in Florida. And I just got to say, I think DeSantis absolutely crushed Cruz in this debate. He made a lot of really great points. People were screaming and yelling. Some people didn't like DeSantis. But it was really interesting. So we'll talk about that. And we've got a bunch of other stories, too. This one's surprising. Joe Biden's actually he's condemning the dangerous gain-of-function research being done at Boston University. So I was actually surprised to see that. But of course, we got to talk about Ted Cruz getting interrupted by climate change activists on The View. Man, these activists for the left, they're actually helping the Republican Party because gas prices are one of the biggest issues, if not the biggest right now. Before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com. Become a member to support our work. Click that beautiful little join us button. And as a member, you'll get access to the Timcast IRL Uncensored show Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. plus the entire massive library. I think there's hundreds of episodes now, 400 or 500. You'll definitely want to check that out because we had a bunch of really awesome people. You'll get to watch the Cast Castle vlog, Tales from the Inverted World. We got new shows coming, and you will be supporting our journalists. We had a reporter on the ground at Matt Walsh's event. We've got a reporter on the ground covering a lot of these events as they're starting to take shape with the midterms coming up. So don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us to talk about all of this and more is Lisa Reynolds.
Hi, guys. I'm happy to be back. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Who are you?
Oh, my gosh. I guess a longtime political insider. I just left a really long stint on the Hill, and I'm working in political consulting and freelance writing. So,
right on.
Yeah.
You work for anybody interesting?
Not that I want to say on here.
All right. So
a couple people.
Couple interesting people.
Yeah,
all right, well, cool.
A couple interesting people, yeah.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. We've also got Luke Rudkowski.
Now you get all quiet. You guys are in for quite a show. My name is Luke Rudkowski here of WeAreChange.org, and the shirt I'm wearing today is a little bit on the nose. It's a 2024 Joe Biden shirt.
Come on.
And
family friendly.
It is. It's Hunter Biden who named him this, not me. And if you're looking,
you get to say it.
If you're looking for some very interesting conversations with a lot of people, along with maybe some self-defense classes, this is a perfect shirt for you, which you could get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Because you do. That's why I'm here.
We also have Mary Morgan of Pop Culture Crisis joining us tonight.
I'm back by popular demand. Happy to be here. Yes, I am from Pop Culture Crisis. If you don't know, go subscribe to us on YouTube. I'm happy to be back. I love the fans.
Well, all right.
And I'm here pressing buttons as always.
Pressing the buttons. Let's jump into this first story from Timcast.com. Marco Rubio canvasser reportedly attacked. Told Republicans not allowed in the neighborhood. He was also campaigning for DeSantis as well. I believe he was wearing a Rubio hat and a DeSantis shirt. Or I'm sorry, he was wearing a DeSantis hat and a Rubio shirt. The campaign volunteer who was wearing apparel supportive of the Florida senator and the Florida governor DeSantis reportedly suffered internal bleeding and will require facial reconstructive surgery. Rubio reported on Monday. Hialeah Mayor Esteban Steve Bovo said the police department has reportedly made an arrest, though did not provide further details, citing a lack of information, the Miami Herald reported. So apparently, Rubio is saying it was 4 guys. Now, this is where it gets fun. Because Charlie Cruz has come out himself, and I can respect this. This is the Democrat running for governor saying there's no place for violence in politics. Senator Rubio, your canvasser is in our prayers, and we look forward to those responsible being brought to justice. We have Val Deming saying, I have zero tolerance for any violence against any person for any reason. Those responsible for attacking a canvasser last night should be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Now, I absolutely can respect those calling this out. The Democrats calling this out, the violence. But here we go. From the Miami New Times, Rubio supporter attacked while canvassing is identified has apparent white supremacist past. Okay. Now, the first thing is a bunch of leftists pointed this out. Antifa came out and said he deserved it. They were tweeting this, saying that, oh, it turns out he was a white supremacist, therefore he deserves it. I think he's Cuban and he's not white, so I don't know if white supremacist makes sense. You know, you can call him something else, I guess, but if you want to call him fascist. So this guy gets mercilessly beaten, and the left immediately finds a justification for why. I can only assume then they're probably the ones who beat him, and this was their justification. But the first thing I'm going to say, yeah, I don't like his opinions, if that's the case. You know, I've seen some screenshots of things he may have posted. They're accusing him of posting. Really, really awful stuff. Some of the worst of the worst. Does not justify mercilessly beating someone to the point where they need surgery and they're internally bleeding. And then I want to point out, if the Democrats want to keep playing games like this, we could now say governor candidate Charlie Crist defended white supremacists today. That's the game they play in the media. So if they want to come out and attack this guy who was just beaten and try and make it seem like there's justification for it, then we can point out, oh, Democrats are defending white supremacists, right? The simple thing is no violence, condemn it all. The dude can say bad things. I don't think it's relevant to why he was brutally beaten right now. This is the kind of stuff we have to call for de-escalation on.
I just think it's crazy that they're always, the right is the real threat to America or democracy or anything. But if we look at these attacks over and over again, it's always conservatives that are getting run over by cars or beaten to a bloody pulp, or Rand Paul's getting attacked by his neighbor. It's not them that are getting brutalized all the time. It's our side that's getting brutalized all the time.
There's a video going viral right now of, well, I will point out, just for the sake of, I can hear all the leftists screaming, Charlottesville, when, you know, James Fields, I think, was it, he ran the car.
I have my own theory on that, but that's fine. Like, if you actually watch the footage, but
I mean, you know, there's a lot to say. Antifa does tend to be the one, and BLM and these left extremists going around causing all the violence. And there's a video right now that I retweeted, where it's like a guy and his girlfriend, I'm assuming, they're walking and Antifa is beating them. And then even an Antifa medic grabs the woman and she's screaming. And I'm like, that's an important thing to highlight for people, is that the Antifa people will put red crosses on their arms for two reasons. It's a disguise. So they can go and beat people and go, I'm just a medic. And then and then also as propaganda. When the police arrest them, then they post photos saying, the police are arresting medics, so why are they doing it? And it's because they're psychotic extremist terrorists who are beating people.
I'm looking at the article that you mentioned here. I'm trying to find out the exact sources of what they're using here. But they're also reporting that the police report is not mentioning that there was a political dispute, nor does it look or indicate that there was a specific targeting of this specific individual. So what's really going on here? Are they just trying to justify it? Was there any reason? Is there someone really going through Twitter, finding someone on the street that's a niche person saying, hey, you did this in a couple years ago? I highly doubt that.
No.
Exactly
no one's saying that.
I know.
What they're saying is, this guy was canvassing. Some people saw his shirt and his hat, beat him up, and then when the news broke from Rubio that this guy was brutally beaten and told you're not supposed to be here, Antifa immediately rushed out to dig up the guy's past. Now, here's the other issue. I don't know that's even true, because the photos they posted do not look like this guy unless he dropped 50 pounds.
Yeah, he looks like a Spanish guy too, which
Right.
doesn't really add up to a good white supremacist there in the story that they have there. So again, a lot of the things don't make sense here. We don't know exactly what happened. We weren't there. There's no video of the incident, but we have to understand that our society is becoming more violent. When we look at crimes, especially in major cities, there is an epidemic happening here, and whether it's because of the destruction of our mental health or just our political class becoming more hyperbolic by the day, it was just a few weeks ago where Biden stood behind a huge podium with the red lights behind him declaring that MAGA people are the true danger to this country. And when you have such sensationalistic, hyperbolic language, you're going to have people taking action on that language, which is pretty dangerous for everyone involved in the political sphere.
Another interesting point, though, to bring up is that they can always dig into the past of Republicans too, but like it didn't matter about George Floyd's past, right? Like
Right.
he can hold guns to pregnant women, and that's fine.
Did he point a gun like at her belly?
Yeah,
I don't know. Is that what he did?
yeah, and robbed her.
I read that he pointed the gun at her belly and said, "Do you want your baby to live or die?"
Right. He's fine. We can.
But I've also read that
classify him
story
as
was
safe.
completely fabricated, so I don't know what
See?
to think. And it's really irrelevant. We know that he had a criminal record.
That's
And
my
we know
point,
that he
though.
was on
Like,
drugs when he died.
We don't even know if what they're saying about this guy is true. I didn't read any of like the tweets that it says, but even if it were, it didn't seem to matter for their people with their shady past, right? And so it doesn't justify violence under any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, tell you something funny. I went to this market the other day, and it was really, really great. It was in Potomac, Virginia, I think is the name of the city. This beautiful place. Wow, everyone there is very wealthy. The mall at Tyson's, I could not believe it was like being in the capital city of the Hunger Games. The bathroom had like a lounge section in it, it was weird, like a half moon chair, and there's like weird like marble lighting. Wow. And I went to this market, and they had some Ruth Bader Ginsburg chocolates, and it said Notorious RBG, and I said that is a perfect gift for Luke, and so I bought it and I brought it back to Luke. And the reason I bring it up is that one of the chocolates, it said something like "Fight for what you believe in" with the red salute on it, the communist fist, and I just think it's funny. Like, I know what the red salute is and means and why what the symbol is supposed to be, but you see it as a mainstream icon. And this one, I know the left is going to love this one. They're going to start vomiting on themselves, screaming. When I see the red salute, it may as well be a swastika.
Right.
There were two extremist ideologies in Europe at the turn of the 19th century. They believed almost the same things in terms of authoritarianism. They just differed on cultural things. The communists wanted to purge the culture. The Nazis wanted to reinforce traditional culture. But they both loved the symbol of the weak coming together to form the strong. With the fascists, they had the fasces, the bundle of sticks with the blade in it, strapped together because each individual stick is weak, but together it makes a weapon. And the red salute is the outward-facing fist, where each individual finger is weak, but together it's strong. That's why they're showing you the fingers when they do it. So when I go into a store and it's a bunch of like regular old people being like, we're normal people who don't like extremism. Here's our hate symbol. Here's a chocolate with a symbol of 100 million dead. And it's normal to people, just completely normal.
Yeah, I was like, thank you, Tim, for the genocide of my people on a chocolate. Since, of course, I'm Polish. I was born and raised in Poland, and that represents, a lot of, just horrible things that happened to my people. All the innocent people that were, of course, tortured, that were murdered because they didn't believe in the right political ideas that, of course, the communists wanted you to believe in. And I think there's a reason why there's so much genocide and so much communism that always coalesces together throughout human history, and that's something that is not really taught in history class or in public schools, but there's a big correlation there, and it's not an accident.
But the point that you're making, to where it's like all these rich people and whatever, I think it was just James Klug. He was doing a like, what is fascism, or is America fascist type of video, and there's all these like rich people on the beach, and he's pushing them against like about what is fascism. They have no idea what it even means. They can't define it.
Right.
So they're going around calling like all Americans, or at least half the population, fascist. They don't even know what it means.
Well, here's a funny thing. I watched this YouTube video. So I went to Gettysburg this weekend too. And then, it's like an hour and 40 minutes or whatever from here, hour and a half. And then started watching a documentary series. It was like 4 hours long. And then in between that, YouTube recommended this "What Would Happen" a video from a YouTuber. I forget his name, so I apologize for this guy. But it was like, who would win a civil war? And it was a really great video. He got a lot of things wrong.
Oh, you're talking about What If All History?
Yeah, that guy.
Red Yard. He's been asked on the show a couple times here. People have been asking in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I watched
dude.
his video. It was really, really interesting. Yeah. And I forgot exactly what I was trying to say about it. What were you just mentioning?
Gettysburg and
Civil War. Who would win a Civil War?
No. What were you saying?
About the rich people not knowing what fascism is, and
oh, right. I'm sorry. The point he made is that prior to the past 50 years, every political faction was authoritarian right. The idea that there's an authoritarian left is new. The idea there's a libertarian left is extremely new. And so he was making this point where he's like, if you were to take all the political factions from like the previous conflicts throughout the past 100 years and bring them to today, they would all be authoritarian right. Like even the communists were very pro-masculinity and like working class. They just wanted to purge the traditions, and the fascists wanted to preserve the traditions.
Right.
But they were all like lunatic, homicidal maniacs. And the funny thing I think about it is it's just like really easy to point out, as like we know the Nazis were some of the worst in our history, like just the horrifying things they did, and the communists did what 12-fold more, substantially more than that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like
Mao
50
too.
times.
Yep.
The communists all together had like 50 times more murder and genocide.
Right, but it's always the Nazis.
But you can buy the red salute in your local town market on a chocolate supporting your Supreme Court, your favorite Supreme Court justice.
Didn't Obama have like a Christmas ball with Mao on it in the White House?
I'm not sure about that.
I don't know.
We got to look that one up.
Look that up. I'm just saying. I feel like that was a thing.
And then
this
when
was a long time ago.
I remember when I pointed out some leftists did the red salute. I mean, they all do it. They walk around, they raise the fist. They don't understand that they're raising the fist is literally. I think it was like Ethan Klein or somebody who was like, Tim's criticizing the universal symbol of resistance, and I'm like, that's not what it is. Like, yo, read a history book, bro. It's the red salute. The Chinese Communist Party. When you're joining it, you have to give the red salute while you recite the pledge to the Chinese Communist Party. It's like imagine if you could like buy a chocolate with the Roman salute on it. It's just bonkers that that's acceptable in this country. We're a country of like freedom-loving, libertarian, individualist types. That's what the country is founded on. Yet authoritarian, murderous, genocidal communism has their symbols everywhere.
And I think you were right. Fox News has an article from 2015 that's titled "White House Christmas Decor Featuring Mao Zedong Comes Under Fire."
Correct, yeah.
And it talks about how Mao Zedong was hanging out with a drag queen in the depiction there. It's again an old article, but
it was like a really long time ago, but that's okay in the White House.
It's kind of crazy to see so many genociders just publicly loved and adored, especially Che Guevara. When you look at his history, especially the way he treated people in the LGBTQ community, especially how he treated people of color, the history on that, when you look at it, is very eye-opening to say the least.
What do we think of the Trudeau
mention of his love of communism?
No, like the comparison that what's his face is his father.
Oh.
Like it's like this.
I mean, the pictures are funny.
The pictures are funny.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like there's weird history that aligns this,
I like my conspiracy
Didn't
theories.
his mother meet him?
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, like numerous times.
I think it's funny because like I was reading a Snopes thing and it's like Trudeau's mother did meet with Castro, and it was around the time, like it was like in a similar time frame to when he may have been born or whatever. But I think they're saying it was like a couple of years before anyway.
They look quite a bit alike.
Yeah, he doesn't look like his father. So
He doesn't look like
he
his father,
doesn't.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So
He's clearly fond of the ideology, so
maybe Fidel
he's paying
Castro was a
homage.
milkman in Canada.
Yeah, like-
you know?
Maybe he's just trying to grab onto his
It's
father's
just-
legacy. I don't know.
It's the funniest things about these things where it's like, well, it is true that Trudeau does look like him and he doesn't look like his father, and his mother did meet Castro and did travel down there. It's debunked. It's not. And you're like, well, what do you mean? Like, do you have any evidence? Is like you're giving, like, this is the thing. Snopes is giving us reason to believe it's actually true. Not necessarily Snopes, but these other, a bunch of fact checks. It's like all of these points you're making about coincidence and happenstance are evidence in the positive, and then you just come out right and say, but it doesn't actually make sense, therefore it's debunked. We see that so often with fact checks in the media.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
they
even
just
listen to them
they
anymore.
just pick and choose whatever they want to, of course, work for their larger agenda. I did hear that the years don't add up, and that the year that the photos that are circulating don't add up to when he was born. There's other people
What
arguing.
if it was IVF?
Yeah, I don't know.
How advanced was that at the time?
I don't know if they had that
the history.
during that
How old
specific
is Trudeau?
time.
He's not that
Special,
old.
But there's other
special
people-
package
Yeah.
on dry ice delivered to
Yeah.
the Trudeau household.
But here's the thing, like even
Special
if
delivery.
it doesn't match up for that time that she met him. Like there's plenty of people that still see people without anybody knowing.
Yeah,
as well.
the other
Like,
people are arguing that there was specific meetings that happened between them. A
whirlwind
that were not
romance.
documented, or
I mean,
yeah.
that
Trudeau's mom
happened.
was like-
Pre-internet, of course.
Fidel, I can't do this. My husband will find out.
This needs to be made into a soap opera.
I like to
Yeah,
believe
that would
it's
be great,
true. I'm
actually.
just gonna keep trying to believe that it's true.
The Generalissimo. No, my son. He's not my son. All right, let's talk about Ted Cruz. Here we go. From CNN, protesters interrupt Ted Cruz's interview on The View. Did you guys see this? Ted Cruz was on The View, and it was disrupted by protesters, and it was really funny that people were saying that it was the cat with the salad meme, because the View women, like Whoopi Goldberg, were screaming at the audience to like stop yelling, and Ted Cruz was just laughing. It's like having a good time. So you have these climate change protesters appearing on The View. They're screaming while Ted Cruz is talking, and they're protesting oil or whatever. I don't know what group they're with. Cover climate now, they yelled. Here's the best part. We're 15 days away from the midterm elections. Early voting is already happening. And the number one issue right now on people's minds, for the most part, is the economy and gas prices. So when you have a Republican on The View in front of all these people, and you're screaming, no more gas, no more fossil fuels, Ted Cruz, man, he should have been like, Well, I assure you, if you vote Republican, we'll make sure there will be more of it, and then the prices will come down. But think like these activists. Look, my conspiracy theory on this one is that they're being hired by Republicans.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Including the soup can girls?
Soup can girls.
Or non-binary individuals?
Well,
Mashed potatoes.
Apparently it's an heiress to the Getty oil fortune who's been providing some funding to them. And so I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying it's conspiracy theory. Why, right before the midterms, are anti-oil activists acting a fool, making the left look really, really bad, and when gas prices are freaking people out? You know what I mean? It's just, I'm not literally saying the Republicans are paying them. I'm saying they may as well be. All Republicans should be clapping and cheering for this.
To be fair, we don't, like, the Republicans never fight, like, right anyway, and they don't fight dirty like that. That's probably been one of our biggest weaknesses. So I couldn't give them that much credit for thinking that far ahead.
They're literally screaming, "No more oil!" Oh, like, what are you going to be using that? And
They're
my favorite
literally
clip,
calling for mass murder.
yeah,
So.
yeah, absolutely. They don't understand the larger consequences if we get rid
Or maybe
of oil.
they do understand the larger consequences and they just don't care.
Or maybe
No,
maybe they just want to get rid of people.
They're consequentialists.
They care. They care about the earth and not the people. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
do I care about the centipede that I step on as it's like you're running towards me? I'm like, centipede. It's like, I care to get rid of it. You know what I mean? Like, do you care about the wasps you spray? You care in the sense that they have alerted you to their presence. You don't like them, and now you're doing away with them. You know,
But
you see what
they
I'm saying?
think that we can have the same comforts and luxuries that we have now without fossil fuels. Don't they? At least
sort of.
they want to survive.
What I'm saying is they think we can have the same comfort as we do now without fossil fuels if tons of people die. You see what I'm saying? You know, like when I see a wasp's nest on my porch, I care. That is not a good thing. And so I spray them and the wasps die. So they care, but not in the way you'd think a human is supposed to care about another human.
Yeah, my favorite thing is seeing all the garbage left after a lot of these climate change rallies. My second favorite thing was recently seeing a video of these people gluing their hands to the street. And then one of the ladies doing that glued her hand and took toxic super glue and just threw it down the drain right afterwards with a sign that says we need to protect the environment. I mean, these people could be making legitimate actions. There are legitimate things that we could do to start cleaning things up, especially in our environment, especially when it comes to holding multinational corporations accountable, especially when it comes to holding China accountable. But they're not doing any of that. Their end goal is to essentially punish everyone for not paying enough taxes to the government, which is such an MK Ultra mind control belief that is just mind-boggling, being able to sit here saying these people think if you give the government more money, the weather's going to be gooder. That makes no sense at all.
The funny thing is that, like,
This
there's
is
petroleum.
this is a picture of
Oh,
what Luke was
what was
referencing. There's a bunch. You Google search garbage at climate rally, and there's just like thousands of photos.
Absolutely.
But I
people
was
don't
saying
care.
super glue, like just them purchasing super glue, you're supporting the petroleum industry. Like how many, like they don't realize how it's in
Maybe they
everything.
shoplifted it.
Probably.
But then
I mean,
throwing it down the sewer, I mean, come on. That's just
They're also putting their money where their mouth is by not bathing.
That's
Saving
true.
water.
And not having kids
So true.
or aborting them.
Yep.
So it's like the end result of leftism is it just won't exist in 50 years.
I'm okay with that. Kind of like I'm okay with people like, having
look,
mass shootouts in North Philly.
I'm not okay with that.
No,
personally.
that's terrible.
It's not.
No, but what you want to tell people that they can have abortions and they can
No.
sterilize their kids?
No, I don't want anybody to have abortions. I think that's murder. But I do think that if there's like a bunch of people like running roughshod in North Philly and cops are getting killed all the time, then fine, let them go shoot each other.
Well, I mean, I suppose as an issue of defund the police, that's what they've been arguing for.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're just saying you're in favor of.
No, I'm saying fund the police, fund it actually.
But not there, I mean.
Yeah,
Like,
fund it where they're not being
in-
crazy and
in-
that they don't support defund the police.
So-
Put extra cops there.
I'm saying this, like, look, if the end result of, let me put it this way, the left comes out and says women have a right to choose to get an abortion. Okay. They say, we were just watching the Ron DeSantis Charlie Crist debate, and Ron asks Charlie Crist about child sex changes, and Crist keeps bringing up abortion. He doesn't answer the question. He says, abortion, women's choice. And it's like, okay, dude, if a group of people are burning the country to the ground, running through the streets, smashing windows, burning everybody, then they come out and it's their political position. They should be able to abort their children and sterilize them. I don't understand. I mean, I do understand why conservatives are mad about it, But it's also just kind of a funny thing where it's like the people who you think are evil and destroying everything are also like ending their genetic line. And so it's just like, look, I've tweeted this and I will say it again. One of the most shocking things to me is that you can question Fauci and get banned from every platform. You can question the CDC and get banned from every platform. You can have you could be a doctor who contributed to the invention of mRNA and they ban you. But if you come out on Twitter several times and say, consider spaying and neutering your children to save the planet, nobody cares. Not a single hit piece, no criticism, no jokes, no mockery. You can say, please abort your kids. There's too many people already. Not a single thing. It's shocking to me that I just feel like that should be like cancel culture worthy. To come out and be like, you should abort your kids and sterilize them. They should be like, you stop. But no, they cheer for it.
And they're the ones who pretend to be the champions of the poor when they think it would be better to be dead than poor.
Stacey Abrams said abort poor people.
They literally say that. I was doing a one-on-one video, and I was debating some guy on the street in front of like the Supreme Court, and I said, your argument there is that it's better to be dead than be poor. And he goes, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I was like I didn't even know what to say. I just looked at him like, you can't be serious. Like,
what's the end result if they all start sterilizing their kids and getting abortions?
I mean,
in 50 years, they're gone.
Here's my problem.
You can't kill enough people that there won't be poor people. That's
no.
Just
liberals.
No, right.
He's talking about like
what I'm saying is these people. This is the crazy thing. It is politically correct to say that the left should be allowed to abort their children and sterilize their children. How is that? That sounds like nightmarishly genocidal, but for some reason, it is a political position held by Democrats.
It's trendy, according to the agenda and narrative that they're trying to push on everybody. And according to who you talk to, Mary, you could take out a lot of poor people, especially if you're talking to individuals like Bill Gates and all these other people who are pushing this larger agenda against everyone else.
Specifically, he wants to take them out in Africa, not in the West.
But and in India too, he's doing a lot of projects there as well.
It's not genocidal because they've dehumanized that, right? Like they say it's a clump of cells or it's not legitimately.
But their
human.
own kids.
I know. I'm not saying it's right.
No, I mean like sterilizing their kids too.
I didn't hear that.
Well, yeah, they're giving puberty blockers and other drugs, which
that's
are
something completely different. Like that's like Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
No.
Right? Like
but
that is what mothers are doing. They're trying to do that for attention.
Right, sure, and for whatever, there's a bunch of different reasons for abortions. The point is, both result in the left erasing themselves from. Yeah.
So why should we complain?
Well, so look.
Because children are the battleground of this whole
then school choice,
whatever you want to call it.
Then school choice is the battlefield. So if the argument right now is it is politically correct to allow people to abort their kids and sterilize their kids, and that is what YouTube says is the right thing to say, conservatives don't do it, liberals do it, then okay, well, all right, there you go. You get what you want, and in 50 years, there's no leftists.
But there's some intrinsic morality that's there. Like, you can't go to the pearly gates of heaven and look at God and say, hey, I didn't do anything to stop it because it would erase all leftists, and I was happy about that. Like, you have to live with your own conscience. I think that's where the Republicans,
I understand,
the right wing comes in with that.
And I understand conservatives are desperately trying to save even the people they really don't like. It's a fascinating phenomenon. My point is just that. And they're happy
to kill us. Like, let's not. I mean, they're running.
Oh, look at the guy in Florida who got mercilessly beaten. Look at Aaron Danielson. But no, my point is not to say that Republicans should eschew morality and ethics and let horrible things happen to kids. It's that the machine itself is destroying itself. The establishment is destroying itself with its own policies, and the end result is either going to be an Islamic world or just a conservative religious. Abrahamic world of some degree.
I was saying that earlier this morning because all of these factions are all of a sudden like attacking themselves. Like the feminists are getting mad at this LGBT trans kid agenda or women taking over sports. But the funnier one is the Muslim community. They've been more outspoken, especially about the like transitioning and the stuff and LGBT agenda being in their schools. All of a sudden, things that they wouldn't report on, especially in the UK about all the grooming gangs and stuff, all of a sudden there's a grooming gang crisis. And I really think it's because they've been speaking out more about about the trans agenda and the LGBT stuff in the schools, because they won't have that. They are totally incompatible. And it also, then it breaks down these like coalition building that the left is trying to do.
To me, I think it's important to fight for everyone, even the deranged lunatics and the leftists. I think everyone's important. We are all a part of humanity, and that's kind of my like hippy dippy kind of worldview, the way I see it.
No, I agree with you.
But also in a larger perspective, I think we have to understand we're also facing a major population crisis. Elon Musk likes to talk about this a lot. It's happening very severely in China right now, but in the United States and particularly in Europe, we're seeing the decline of the current civilization, of the current population there, to drastic levels where soon there's not going to be enough people to repopulate, and with that comes major crises towards our entire infrastructure, towards our entire economic system, towards our entire way of life. So just on that own population crisis, we need to fight like hell so there are more lives in the future to make sure that there's not as much chaos.
Let me pull up this story from The Independent. Biden slams Republican attempts to ban gender-affirming healthcare in interview with transgender TikTok star. Maybe you guys saw this one. The president's conversation comes as Republicans continue to pass numerous anti-transgender pieces of legislation. Biden met with Dylan Mulvaney. My personal opinion is that Dylan Mulvaney is intentionally trying to insult and mock trans people and women, and that is not behaving seriously.
Ultimate troll.
That's what
I think Dylan Mulvaney is absolutely trolling.
I don't think
absolutely.
I think that he has like Arrested Development from his his childhood years, and that's how he pictures women, and he's going to exploit it.
I got 1 point for you. Wearing high heels in the woods.
I think that's
what do you mean by
that's
that?
like what
Dylan
insane.
no.
These people are
Wait,
mentally
you girls don't do that?
No, when you reduce
know.
femininity down to those consumerist objects, really, if it's what you think, if it's Arrested Development and sort of a child's view of
I think all of it is Arrested Development.
womanhood,
No,
and maybe that's how it manifests.
I feel like that's naive. Dylan has that viral video saying these are my hiking heels. That is a phrase that doesn't exist. Barbie pouch. What's the other thing? There's a bunch of insulting words that Dylan uses to mock women in their TikTok videos.
But that's how a lot of these transgender people are anyway. Like they're big caricatures.
Is that mutually
of women.
exclusive with being genuinely dysphoric?
So if you take a look at, I'll use two examples that I've used before, and that's ContraPoints and Blair White. They are both prominent political trans people, and they do not behave that way. They behave like and neither does Contra. They are both.
Right.
You can disagree with either of their politics, and they both create well-made YouTube videos discussing their points. Because just because someone is trans does not mean they're going to be inherently one way or the other. And Blair brings up the
but I don't think Blair has Arrested Development either. I mean, like
that's why I'm arguing when Dylan Mulvaney makes a video wearing heels in the woods going,
I'm a girl.
Like, that's come on. You think that's not trolling? Like if someone put on blackface and started running around screaming fried chicken, we'd be like, that dude is trying to insult black people. Not that they have Arrested Development and they think they're black.
I think that he's exploiting it and using it to his advantage, but I think he is definitely mentally ill and like, because he was like a gay guy in theater, right? And he was on Broadway or something like that. I got like a little crazy and I was bored and I watched a lot of his videos like over and over again a couple days ago. But like, I really think they have that look, that like SSRI mentally ill look in their
Why
face.
go by Dylan after transition?
That's his
Dylan's
name.
a girl
But
name.
No, look.
Dylan can be a boy.
This is the game right here. I don't.
Pushing.
If you when you look at Dylan Mulvaney, what do I see? I see someone who has created a caricature which creates a weapon for people to attack trans people. Because I'll mention it again. Blair White and ContraPoints, left and right, extremely prominent and normal behaviors. Granted, you can disagree with the idea of being trans or gender dysphoria and say it's in the DSM-5, therefore, it's considered a mental disorder according to DSM-5.
But what about him like really going through the process, getting laser hair removal on his face and actually doing the physical steps? Like I would think that he would be more of a troll if he didn't commit to it physically.
If that's a troll, that's psychotic, obviously.
He's definitely psychotic.
And if it's a mocking caricature, like you say, like blackface, I think the reason that it would be more effective and powerful as a way to mock women compared to blackface is that like your gender is a lot more crucial to who you are, like who you are as a person, than your race. I think your race is just a surface level thing about you, but your gender is way more core to who you are and how you relate to people.
But more egregious than that is that the White House is entertaining it like it's something serious to be talked about. Like there are so many other things going on.
But sure. Here's an easy question though. So like, regardless of who's right on whether, Blair said Dylan is not trolling, and but I look at this. Why didn't the White House invite ContraPoints? ContraPoints has million plus subscribers, getting millions of views on these hour-long essays that are extremely prominent on the left, that are calm, well put together videos. Again, you can disagree with it, but
is Contra more left or right? I don't watch
leftist.
Okay, because I know Blair's right. So
right. That's why I bring up these two specific examples, because they're very prominent. Contra has like 1.5 million subscribers, gets millions of views. Joe Biden could have been like, here's a person I can bring here to talk about these issues that is calm, rational, and politically prominent. Dylan Mulvaney is not politically prominent. And if you're trying to advocate for trans rights, the last person anyone would bring is going to be Dylan Mulvaney.
Here's the thing, though, like their comms team, like everybody knows that when you're working in political comms, you insert yourself into the news cycle. And Dylan has been in the news cycle where Contra has, like, I've never heard of it, but I've definitely heard of Dylan before the White House.
It might be Contra's internet footprint, if you will, that also makes Dylan Mulvaney
substantially
better.
Larger.
Yeah, but it's the internet footprint that they don't want, because that's something that you have to answer for.
And it's timing. I
remember Contra's old videos, like those were kind of politically incorrect.
I think it's
there's
more
something
timing
to answer for there.
You try to insert yourself into the news cycle. You hit on something that's big. He just had a couple videos that went viral, and they're trying to capitalize on it. That's
perhaps
shallow is easier.
But hey, guys, the memes are awesome. The memes are incredible when it comes to this entire topic, especially when they had another influencer take over the communications at the White House, and they were just TikToking the whole time around.
With the nails?
Yeah. Today, just moments ago, I also tweeted the American people looking all disheveled, saying, please, I can't afford food or gas. And then Danny DeVito coming off and saying, best I could do is this transgender here that we're going to be talking about. And as you mentioned, Tim, you're absolutely right. This is not an issue that, of course, brings America together. This is an issue that divides America. The administration right now has many problems. Our society has many problems that we're facing right now, and this is what we're talking about. This is what they're pushing forward as their agenda. To me, this is a perfect way to distract people, to divide and conquer them, to have no fighting amongst themselves as society literally crumbles all around us.
So let's advance conversation to the next point in the article. Joe Biden coming out and saying states should not be allowed to ban sex changes for children, and to me, I'm wondering, why? What did the Democrat? Bill Maher made this point when they were talking about, it was I think it was in 2020 or it was in 2018. Democrats were advocating for transgender rights in prisons, and Bill Maher said, "I get it. We want to protect civil rights, but this is like 300 people. Why are they putting it front and center?" Now you can argue, of course. Hey man, the most marginalized voices probably need the most help because no one pays attention to them for exactly what Bill Maher is saying. No one's paying attention to this small group of people, therefore someone needs to. But when Joe Biden comes out choosing an extremely, extremely divisive issue and one that is extremely unpopular, I have to wonder why? Whose vote is he trying to secure by coming out and saying children should get sex changes?
I don't know whose vote he's trying to secure, but I will say that, it all goes back to the civil rights era legislation. And so no matter what these like small minorities do, as long as they couch it in civil rights language, they're never going to get beat no matter what the vote says, because it's like enshrined in quote the Constitution. So they can say whatever they want. Like the voting population won't matter. It may like slow it or if we object to it temporarily, but it's enshrined in law that like if you couch anything in civil rights terminology, that it's going to stay like that. So, I mean, I guess he's just trying to be on, quote, the eventual right side of history, because that's what's going to happen given what we did in 64?
I think one thing the Democrats do, and all politicians, is compartmentalize information, and they don't know how to do it right now, and that's the problem. The example being Hillary Clinton, when it was 2015, I think. She went to, where was it, Arkansas or Alabama?
With the hot sauce?
No, she put on a Southern drawl.
Oh, yeah.
She talked a little like this. And it's like, Hillary, you were in New York for the longest time on TV. We know you don't talk like that. But Back in the old days, you could get away with that. Imagine what it must have been like campaigning before radio. You'd show up to Boston and you'd put on a Boston accent. People would be like, hey, he sounds just like me. And then you go to New York and you say both instead of both. And all of a sudden people think you sound like them. Then you go down to the South and you talk like this and everyone's like, but no one could know how you really talk because you can't write down, if someone had an accent or something.
Right, that's true.
Then we get radio, then we get TV, then we get the internet. Even with TV, local news is not going to play the video of Hillary Clinton in, New York's not going to play the Alabama footage. They're going to play the New York footage. Now we have the internet. All of a sudden there's a viral video of Hillary Clinton putting on a fake accent. All of a sudden there's even AOC.
AOC just did it. I was just going to say, yeah. She
so
just
weird. She doesn't more than
played
once.
up
People
So.
said that she was
Latina.
imitating that meme where that little kid is like, listen, Linda, listen.
I think that they were.
I
That's
think she
what
was
it
doing
reminded
that,
me
or
but-
was she just
but
trying to
It's
like
not- it's
fake
not-
the accent?
It's not that one. There was another event she went to it was like a year or two ago where she had a really heavy Latina accent, even though everyone's like,
That's so phony.
You went to, where did you go to school? Like Boston University or something? Like you don't talk like that.
That's crazy.
You're
My
like,
favorite thing about that whole clip was like, she's like, oh, classy, classy. Like, that's what they say. And she's sitting there like spread eagle, like in the middle on the
What?
stage. Like, and she's like, be
Dancing.
classy. And her legs are like spread open out on the floor for everybody. I'm like, oh, you're so
I-
gross. She's so gross.
I think when Joe Biden has someone like Dylan Mulvaney at the White House, what they're probably looking at is, this is a person who has all of these Gen Z followers. So whatever we say here doesn't apply outside this bubble, right? Like they still live in this world where they think meeting with this influential person won't ripple outwards. Go back 50 years, meet with a civil rights leader and do an interview talking about how you're going to defend their work. You're hoping that civil rights leader will go out to all of their followers and say, here's what they told me. But is someone who's not a fan of that person going to listen to what they have to say? No. What Biden is hoping for is 100 people hear what I've just said today and vote for me, and maybe only 10 people hear it outside of this bubble and get mad at me for it.
See, I think-
Compartmentalizing the information, thinking you can say whatever you want because it won't reach the larger public.
So I think there's like different factions that are interested in this trans agenda thing, right? You have big pharma that's going to make tons of money on it, not just with the drugs themselves, but with like, even if you're confusing children, years and years of therapy, like that all costs money, right? So big pharma has an interest in propping up this stuff, right? The left does because they think it's like the sympathy, we're the good guys vote. And then you also have like the creeps that took advantage of like the regular LGBT stuff and say, hey, if we couch it in these same terms, then, we can have pedophilia, whatever. So you have all these interests that while are not the same, because you know how everybody on the right, like the left says, oh, you're talking about they, like who's the they? Where's the big conspiracy theories? It's not like that they're all in like, there's one guy like pulling the strings. And of course there might be a couple that are really influential, but they all have competing interests. Like Big Pharma definitely has an interest in pushing this. Along with,
Well, yeah,
Every company that makes money.
Yeah.
Well, they get patients that are hooked for the rest of their lives. You get them in early, especially the young children. You're going to have someone that's going to be buying your product every single month because they need to in order to live.
and then
Remember
Biden hears this and they dump money into his campaign.
Remember the report that said it was something like pharmaceutical or Wall Street said that cures are probably bad business.
Yep, it was a Goldman Sachs assessment saying maybe we shouldn't cure people because that will hurt our profit motive. This is the kind of satanic how do you say that word? Megalomaniacal
There you go.
thinking of these lunatics who are essentially truly calling the shots, have the big corporate lobbyists. And when you look at Dylan Mulvaney, like how do you explain him? Again, testing tampons, but then the next day trying to normalize women having
That was
bulges.
This is just.
That's why I'm saying
This
it's
is
a
just
troll.
need.
It's a troll.
This is
And-
a desperate need for clout. That's what it is. I just looked at Dylan Mulvaney's Instagram story and saw a picture captioned "peeing at the White House."
I'm telling you, this person
Like that's
is-
just somebody who is desperate for clout.
I wouldn't be surprised if in a year Dylan Mulvaney comes out and says you are all so dumb, because all this is mocking women and mocking trans people.
Now we have to ask ourselves, why is this happening? I mean, according to a Trafalgar poll, 80% of Americans don't support gender treatment for children. So why are they doing this? Is it someone at the White House saying, "Hey, Dylan Mulvaney's getting all these views. Maybe if we get him to the White House, we'll get him to support our cause and tell everyone to vote for us"? But people don't understand. Maybe people are just watching because it's a car crash.
All right, I got a conspiracy theory for you. China wants Trump to win. Saudi Arabia wants Trump to win. TikTok is controlled by the CCP, and they're advancing ideologies that are sabotaging the Democrats because when Trump is president, now a lot of people might think right top of their head, no, Trump was hard on China. That was bad for China. Was it? Donald Trump goes America first, brings manufacturing back to the United States. In the short term, bad for China. In the long term, Donald Trump doesn't want to go to war, doesn't care about the Belt and Road Initiative, doesn't care about Africa and South America. Donald Trump cares about America first. In the long run, that's actually really good for China. You could make the argument. So TikTok comes out promoting these ideologies that Democrats embrace, and then Democrats lose. Donald Trump gets in. Donald Trump says, I don't understand why we're in NATO. I don't understand why we're in Syria. I don't understand why we're in Afghanistan. China moves in Afghanistan. China moves into other parts of the Middle East. Russia expands their gas monopoly. All things that may be bad, hypothetically, for other parts of the world, or who knows. But most of the people who support Trump are like, why do we care about these things? Why do we care about what other countries are doing? Why do we care about intervening in foreign wars in Ukraine? So China may be looking at the bigger picture like, hey, if Trump is president, America gets out of our way.
Well, Biden's giving, China Afghanistan on a silver platter, especially when the corporations have come in. When you look at the conflict in Ukraine, you do see China benefiting from it because it's the United States versus Russia, NATO versus Russia, and they're kind of in the middle watching two enemies kind of fight each other and destroy themselves. This is an opportunity for China to potentially even take Taiwan. So I would just counter that with those 2 points when it comes to theorizing about this theory.
Well, I don't know, man, but let's do this. We got this story from townhall.com. Bipartisan CBS focus group stuns host when panelists agree on almost everything, including woke culture. So the clip's actually a bit long. What do we have? It's like 3.5 minutes. So I'm not going to play the full thing for you, but it really, really is amazing. You've got a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent, and then they're all just like, she asks the Republican guy, and he's like, I just don't like this indoctrination of kids in schools with the weird sexual stuff that's for adults. We shouldn't have that. And then she's like, is this your kids? And he's like, no, I'm in Texas. But where I was in Iowa, it was bad. And she goes, okay, so you're mad about what's on the news. Then it goes to the black woman in the top left. And she's like, I agree with all of that. I think it's horrible. I've got a bunch of kids. Then it goes to the woman in the bottom right. And she's like, yeah, I completely agree. And even with the vaccine mandates and stuff like that and the lockdowns. So here we have one of the most shocking, I guess, panels so far in the midterms. We're in the middle of the midterms because we no longer do election day. Now it's election month. Right. And we're seeing that at least here, everyone completely agrees. So I'm wondering, I retweeted this person. I don't know who this person is on Twitter. It's a small account with a few followers saying, come the midterms, Democrats are going to win. And the media is going to ask, how could this have happened? And it's because Democrats are secretly, hiding, and Republicans are secretly switching to the Democratic Party. And there's no evidence for that claim, but I'm like, all right, I'll retweet that and say, let's revisit this one on the 9th and see what happens. I think this is more evidence, along with all of the polling, which is insane. The 538 forecast now has basically a coin toss chance that Republicans win both chambers and an 81% chance they at least win the House. I feel like looking at this, it's not so much that it's a red wave or red tsunami. It's that Democrats are quitting, independents are flipping, and Republicans are already 99% in the bag.
I have a good conspiracy theory for you, Ren.
Oh, conspiracy.
Here we go. So the Democrats, traditionally when especially there's a Democrat president in charge, we know that it swings to the opposite party come midterms. So they already knew because, of the way the economy is and gas prices and whatever. I think they're chalking it up, letting us win. That's why they're dumping money into like these right-wing campaigns and stuff, right?
You see the Veritas video?
Yeah. So, but my point is what they're going to do is they're going to let us have control of the House and the Senate so that we can, our base, no matter what, is like not strategic. And they're going to be like, you're not in there. You're not doing enough. So then they're going to start pushing in because we've got these further right candidates. They're going to start pushing in more far right policies. That way, when it comes time for them to get the House, the Senate, and the White House again, come 2024, that it's going to be way easier because they're going to go point to all our terrible policies. And that's where the Republicans won't be like chill about it.
You think Joe Biden's going to sign these policies into law? You think Republicans are going to, House and the Senate's going to pass a bill and Biden's going to be like, okay, I guess, Republicans
depending on what it is, it doesn't matter.
Not just that, but the Democrats have no A-listers. None. Name a Democrat A-lister.
I can't name one.
Anybody?
Not anybody that's worth their salt. Like who?
Like
who do
in
they
the
have running?
Republican
Buttigieg?
Party, you at least have Trump and DeSantis,
Right.
And I'm sure you could probably throw out a couple other B-listers, but who?
Well, Swalwell's pretty social. He's out there,
come on.
God.
meeting a lot of
A-lister.
women.
Who's got the X factor?
Not
Who-
all. But here's the thing: it doesn't. I don't think it really matters because if our base will push us to start like proposing radical policies, and even if Biden doesn't do it, they'll say you need to keep him in so that they don't ruin our country with all these crazy things that they're trying to implement.
That's a better,
I think it's
that's
a
better
strategy.
argument. They might say, look at the Republican bills that they tried to get through and Biden blocked. If Biden doesn't get reelected, they're getting these things through.
You're also, thinking that the Republicans could get something done. I've been very critical of them personally myself, and a lot of the times they come into office and they kind of just sit on their hands, especially when it comes to the Congress.
You
and
will
the Senate.
have your newer people in there proposing legislation. If you have what's his face, Arizona, Blake Masters. Blake Masters is definitely going to want to go in there and like get to work. He's definitely one of those people. But if he gets pushed enough in these 2 years by the right base and starts putting in policy that is too far, quote, right, they have something to run on big time in 2024.
The Republicans right now, who do they got? They got, I mentioned DeSantis and Trump. That's easy. But Carrie Lake, I feel like Carrie Lake could be president. She's the way she speaks, the way she's got a commanding presence, very calm and collected, very quick-witted.
Do you think Carrie Lake would want to be president,
Yes.
though?
You think so?
Like, when we talked
What does that
about
look
it,
on your face?
I just think so. I just think
You just look, you're like, I know
didn't you
secret.
mention
I
it
don't
to
know any
her?
secrets. I'm just saying, I definitely think that, I mean, she's poised to be. She's articulate. She's great with the media, and everybody loves her. Like, if you were to poll regular
she's
Americans
amazing.
right now, they say, I'd love to see her be president.
You know, my
Hands down.
bias is when we get like politicians who have come on this show and it's like pulling teeth. And it's just like the campaign has got a bunch of stipulations or there's like weird things. And I'm like, I ignore it. I'm like, bro, you can show up, sit down or whatever. So I respect every politician who's come on the show because we don't have like a prerequisite list of like talking points. We sit down, I pull up news stories, we talk for a little bit, we go live, and then the conversation goes where it goes. I try to be respectful. I try to make sure we're being,
You were good
honest.
to my former boss when he was on here.
Who was it?
Randy Weber. We were talking about
Oh,
oil and
right,
stuff,
yeah. Yeah, that was great.
I mean, you were great to
But
him.
Carrie Lake, she shows up and MTG sits down and says, sup.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's just talk. And there's no fear. It's just, we'll talk about whatever, ask a question.
That's how it should be, though. As somebody who would give advice to comms advice to candidates, there's so many times where they just come in Twitter spaces and stuff, and I'm like, stop talking. If they were my like candidate, I'd be like, stop talking. I mean, you do as a comms person try to protect them, but it's better when
Different
they're
era,
just
man.
real. It's better. I mean, the authenticity is really what matters.
We were watching the DeSantis Chris debate just before we started this, and Charlie Crist pulled a dirty trick because the campaigns agreed that there would be no cross questions between the candidates. They would let the moderator handle things, and that's the right way to do it. Otherwise, you start yelling at each other, and then the audience goes nuts, and it's WWE. So Crist goes, Ron, are you actually going to be the governor and finish a 4-year term? Why don't you answer right now? And then Ron's like, is it my time yet? Okay, anyway. And then the moderator's like, let me remind the candidates, you've agreed not to ask each other questions. And I thought that Chris got him.
I agree.
Charlie Crist got him by asking that, and Ron should have just said yes.
That's what you said.
Next
I
question.
said that he should have said, I don't know what the political landscape is like right now, but no
That's
matter
not
what,
it.
I'll take care of. I
Just
mean,
say
I
yes.
think it's more honest.
If it were me and I was debating, and someone was like, "Do you want to be president? Are you actually running to be governor? And will you finish 4 terms?" Is that a serious question? Yes, I'm standing here, aren't I? Come on, let's not waste people's time. Okay, obviously I want to be the governor. Obviously I'm here to finish the job, do the job, and finish the term out. Let's not play stupid political games. We
Okay,
have
that's
problems.
a better answer than just yes.
I'm just so sick of the fake everything. The fake
Yeah, I agree.
everything. When Deepwater Horizon is my favorite example. Deepwater Horizon happens and there's oil spilling everywhere. And then the PR guy comes out and says, we're sorry that this happened and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bro, everyone knows your statement is bull crap. Every single time a politician comes out, we know everything coming out of their mouth. I don't care who they are. Just trash coming out. That's why, when Trump came out today and he was like, you know what you got to do to find the leaker? You got to take the writer, the guy who wrote it, and you got to lock him up. And then once he finds out he's going to become someone's husband, then he'll flip. And I'm like, that's a horrible, psychotic thing to say. Wow, but Trump just came out and said it. That's so crazy. That like
I didn't hear that. When was that? Like recently?
there's a clip going around, it's going viral where Trump's he's like, I know, it's
Where
nasty.
was that released?
I tweeted it. It's on my Twitter. Should I pull it up?
Are we even allowed to post videos of Trump talking on Twitter anymore?
I mean, he's just saying that you should hold...
Do you admire that, he's just willing to say crazy things like that?
I don't like that he said it. I don't like that he holds the idea. The point I'm bringing up is, here, it's Citizens for Ethics.
The honesty is refreshing, is what you're saying.
Exactly. This is why people vote for him. They're like, well, I think it's bad, but damn if I'd vote for a liar. Because when Trump says this... So here's a tweet. Citizens for Ethics says, in this horrifying clip, Donald Trump proposes throwing reporters in jail where they'll be raped until they give up their sources. His crowd laughed. I think it's a terrible thing to believe, to say.
Yeah,
and I think reporters, if it were me as a reporter and someone said, give me your source, I'd be like, nope. And if Trump said to me, then you're going to get locked up and be raped or whatever, or be someone's boyfriend or husband, I'd be like, sucks for you, I guess, because you ain't getting anything from me. But the point is, whenever these politicians come out, 99.9% of the time, they're spewing word diarrhea into your face like a projectile, just spraying you, and you're just like, you waste my time, good sir. And then Donald Trump comes out and says this.
The Herschel Walker, when he should have the easiest way around the Herschel Walker stuff with the abortion and stuff is say, I did that. I'm a different person. It was a couple of years ago. I'm sorry. I've hurt a lot of people in my life, and I've been doing everything I can to make amends. I mean, people would have respected that 1,000 times more than tweeting out oh, that's my son. I love him no matter what. Everybody's rolling their eyes. Stop.
Exactly.
I was so mad at their campaign staff for that because they're going to vote. The Republicans down there are going to vote for him instead of Warnock anyway. Let's be fair.
Yeah. Let's
be honest.
Trump's comments here definitely bring some interesting context to the Julian Assange saga that he was involved in as well.
Let's play this tweet and we'll set a segment for it so we can actually. This is what Trump had to say here, so everyone gets the full context. In a tweet from Citizens for Ethics, they say, in this horrifying clip, Donald Trump proposes throwing reporters in jail where they'll be raped until they give up their sources. His crowd laughed. Here we go. In this country they leak. Oh, wait. I always do that.
Yeah, that's what
every single time. And it's because we were listening to the debate earlier, but here you go.
Easily made public. In this country, they leak all over the place, even on the Supreme Court. By the way, you have to find the leaker of the Supreme Court. You have to find the leaker. You know how you find the leaker? They'll say, oh, this is treasonous, what I said. So they can't find the leaker. He leaked all about Roe v. Wade. Look, this person leaked from the Supreme Court, never happened. You know how you find? But they don't want to mention this because they think it's so terrible. You take the writer, because you're never going to find it. They're going through phone records. It's been a long time. You take the writer and or the publisher of the paper, a certain paper and you say, who is the leaker? National Security. And they say, we're not going to tell you. They say, it's okay, you're going to jail. And when this person realizes that he is going to be the bride of another prisoner very shortly, he will say, I'd very much like to tell you exactly who that leaker is. It was Bill Jones. I swear he's a leaker. And we got him. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. But that's the only way you're going to find. We have to find. Can you imagine they leak?
So I'll just point out first and foremost that we need prison reform, because the idea that you get locked up and rape is a threat against you, I think that violates, which amendment is that? Cruel and unusual punishment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. The idea that in our society it is normal and expected and believed that's the case is okay, that's cruel and unusual punishment.
Well, if anything, then the leaker should just be charged with treason and then, found to be guilty or not guilty.
It would be sedition, not
punished
treason.
accordingly.
So just to be specific, sedition.
They already know who the leaker is anyway. Let's stop. They know who the leaker is. They know who the Jan 6 bomber is. They knew who all those people are. They just don't want to do anything about it because it's on their side.
Yeah, I mean, they have total information surveillance. They have the NSA that literally watches almost every little thing you do, and they're playing stupid here. That's a point to make here. Trump's comments here are atrocious. And again, leakers,
but he's not
whistleblowers.
Being serious.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
We all make effed up jokes behind closed doors. He just says it in the open.
I think that's.
But the larger point that I was going to make here, as I said, his comments are okay. You can, but his comments are atrocious. I think what this country has done to leakers and whistleblowers is immoral. But when you look at his administration, it was filled with leakers, and he didn't do anything. When you look at the Obama administration, he was very heavy-handed on leakers, threw them in jail, and used the Espionage Act against them. Trump didn't even go that far. But these comments are bombastic. These comments are over the line.
Hyperbolic.
Yeah.
That's why I agree with Mary that Trump's obviously joking, because he did not go after these people in this way. Obama did. Obama arrested journalists literally, and Trump is only making gross comments about arresting journalists.
But then we have the Julian Assange story.
That's true, though.
Julian Assange is a leaker. And
No, he's not.
Julian Assange is a
whistleblower.
journalist who was helping leakers release information. And this is the person that Trump would take in jail and essentially have, what he said there. If you look at, Julian Assange, Donald Trump said that he was a hero a couple years ago. Now he acts like he doesn't know who he is.
He failed to pardon him.
And the reason that he failed to pardon him, according to some sources, according to the information that we've got, was because Julian Assange wouldn't leak who was the source of the information when it came to a lot of the Hillary Clinton emails. And because of that, Donald Trump, and because of the pushing by Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, didn't pardon Julian Assange and decided to do Kodak Black.
So I just want to, clarify that point. Barack Obama, the president before Trump, locked up journalists, locked up whistleblowers,
Spied on them.
spied on them. Adam Schiff released the private phone records of John Solomon, and Donald Trump said nasty things. I don't like that Trump said these nasty things. I think it's a scary thing to say. But you've got all these leftists that are like, he's so evil. Well, how come these people vote for him? And I'm like, bro, you voted for Obama. Obama went after that Fox News reporter like more than once. Who was that guy? Do you remember that guy? James Risen, was that his name?
I think so. Yeah.
And that was so. Come on. We also have other stories that I'll leave
It's
more
the whole,
vague.
the bark is
journalists who
louder than the
died.
bite. Like the bark is louder than the bite. Like, do you really want?
He's always been that way.
Yeah, like he doesn't really come down as harshly as you'd want him to. A lot of times. And I'm not saying that I agree with what he said, because I don't, but it's always been that. He has a penchant for hyperbole. I feel like it's a Northeast thing, and like the rest of the world doesn't seem to get that.
He also doesn't do favors for the people that you want him to do favors for. The reason that he pardoned those rappers is essentially that like he is obsessed with being liked, being popular. He comes from the entertainment industry. That's what he's about, and it shows.
Right.
So you guys going to vote for Trump 2024?
Yep.
Yes.
Looks like nope.
What's your alternative, Luke?
Not being a part of a divide and conquer system, not being a part of a system that, of course, again, it depends who's running. First of all, who's out there. If Dave Smith is out there, if Pito Peter's out there, if Ron DeSantis is out there, it's a big thing. But obviously, I've criticized Donald Trump. I criticized his connections to Henry Kissinger, John Bolton. I think anyone in power needs to be held accountable. I think he failed in a lot of his policies. He was different. He shuffled things up. He definitely rattled some parts of the establishment, but he definitely coddled another part of the establishment. And I think we could do a lot better. And when someone is ego focused,
Could we do better?
I think so. I think we could absolutely do a lot better.
I think
there's a lot of potential.
He had the experience issue. He didn't have the right people surrounding him. I think that, years in there will help that. DeSantis seems like the better fit because he has the experience, or he did, but he has that under his belt now. And I think that he would be a little more cautious and look back and see what he's done wrong and surround himself with better people this time and actually listen, maybe.
I mean, seeing these comments and then seeing what he says about the vaccine, seeing how he's...
Oh, I didn't like the vaccine
Seeing him just coddle the big pharma and criticize people who are against it, that right there should highlight something. And along with, just all the other things he did before, it makes you really wonder what's going on.
That wasn't even about the vaccine. That was still about Trump and his ego.
It's
not
always
being able to admit that he might be wrong.
But he doesn't want to admit hiring people like Bolton, bringing him on. I mean,
he wanted to have Bill Gates as a science advisor. Okay, that's a huge red flag for me. And as soon as you're trying to get Bill Gates in positions of power in government to regulate things in your life, you're going to have some problems.
So I don't think Ron DeSantis will run against Trump.
I don't think he will either. I absolutely think he will only run if Trump doesn't. If there's like a hole to fill there. 100%.
I would rather vote for DeSantis. But if the issue is, if it's between Trump and DeSantis and they're both running, then I'd just be like, well, it's a coin toss between the two. And if it's Trump and nobody else, it's Trump. Trump saying he's going to fire all of these bureaucrats or try to, that's what Schedule F stuff. Certainly not going to be a Democrat. What do they even stand for? Claiming they want to end fossil fuels, but then begging the Saudis for oil? There's no platform there. Mm-hmm. At the very least, the Republicans are like, we don't like the wokeness in the government. And I'm like, okay, those things are illegal and they shouldn't be there anyway. At least I can vote for that. No wars under Trump. Hey,
I
I'll
have
take
no
it.
problem, just for the record, I have no problem criticizing Donald Trump. I criticized him in a video, like a long one about the $2,000 stimulus. That was pathetic that he was advocating for that. That was like really bad. There's a lot of things that I didn't agree that he did, but I think that overall it was better than any of the alternatives. I wanted Rand Paul originally.
People are saying unsubscribed from Luke Uncensored.
That's fine. That's okay. And I've been expressing these opinions from the very beginning. I'm seeing the comments. I read all the comments all the time. I'm not here. I'm not here just to please people in the comment section. I have my own thoughts, and I'm not here to just go along with the groupthink. And I think it's important to challenge certain narratives. Yes, Ghost Girl, with your little sigh here. It's important to question things. It's important to question anyone in authority, especially when there's so much that you could go back on and you could say, and I don't want to be that person that says, oh, you could just go back and criticize everything. No. It's important to hold people's feet to the fire, including when they do things that actually hurt people. And when the Trump administration brought in the 2 weeks to slow the spread, when they brought in Dr. Fauci, when they brought in Operation Fast Warp Speed, that they caused a lot of irrevocable damage to society, to this country. When they started handing out checks to random individuals, that's a problem right there. All right. And if you're not willing to hold your own party accountable, you're not willing to be the best party that there could be. And yes, other parties, absolute crap, but I don't want to choose between one piece of dog crap and another piece of horse crap. But that's just me personally.
Right, but hold on right now. Between the two of you, what Lisa is saying is Trump made a lot of mistakes. I agree with you, but I think he's learned from those, and he's expressed that he has. And you're saying he made mistakes, therefore he's irredeemable.
No, I don't think he redeemed himself on those mistakes. If he comes forward and says, hey guys, maybe putting Fauci in power, maybe doing Operation Warp Speed.
Well, Fauci was already there. He could have fired him.
What is Trump saying right now about the vaccine? That's an important aspect here, right? That plays along into a lot of different things. And what he's saying right now, I can't even mention here probably on this show, but there should be a larger debate about that specific issue. That should be a warning sign to everyone.
Let me ask you guys, do you think the Republicans, if they win every branch, do you think they will ban abortion nationwide?
Ooh,
I don't think they should. Let me just put it this way. I don't think they should in the next 2 years.
Do you think they will in the next 4? 2024. It's November. Well, I don't know if election day is going to fall in November. Donald Trump wins. It's a gap presidency. The Republicans secure the hold on the House, the Senate. They got the Supreme Court 6-3. Trump wins the presidency. And now they have the path cleared before them. Do you think they ban abortion nationwide?
27, 28 possibility, yeah, after those midterms, yep.
After those midterms? I don't know, though, because historically, it would be a Democrat flip, so they have to do it before.
It's actually more only historically a Democrat flip when there's a Democrat president. When you look at the numbers, it doesn't actually happen as much as if a Republican. The swing isn't as much.
The swing is mostly when the Democrats.
Yeah, when there's it's more extreme when there's a Democrat.
Okay,
president.
Do you think the Republicans want to ban abortion? I don't want to ask you about political expediency. Is it within the Republican agenda to ban abortion nationwide?
I don't think they will.
If it were in their agenda, I think that more would have happened on that front.
I think they like to tout it a lot, and that's exactly what the problem I have with the trad life. While I believe in everything that they say, it's the people that are always espousing it are the worst.
Where did they come from?
I don't know. I mean, I like what they say. Yeah, women should stay home. I mean, I shouldn't be forced to work. Whatever. Not the point. The point is that's a whole nother day. I believe in everything they're saying, but if you ever look at the personal lives of the people that are actually promoting that stuff, they are the most vile ones out of all of them. And so it's kind of I don't think, while the Republicans sure like to tout it a lot, I think that the majority of them just like to say the words. I mentioned this a couple times. I visited Gettysburg, read a whole bunch of plaques. And actually, I mean, for people who don't know the area, where we are with Harper's Ferry, with Antietam, we ride our bikes to Antietam battlefield for coffee. It's really crazy to growing up in Chicago, not seeing this stuff, and everywhere you go, there's these historical plaques they have explaining what happened there, and there's cannons everywhere. Yeah. And then I watched this documentary, and I thought to myself, if the Republicans, that abortion is very much the same on the same moral level as slavery. It's not necessarily, I know there could be arguments on one being worse than the other. I'm not saying that. I'm saying as an issue of moral conflict, I think that
it is very likely the Republicans do ban abortion. It does cause a dramatic escalation. And I do think that abortion, if we are to follow the historical track in human rights expansion, abortion will be outright banned. It will be abolished completely. And then we will look back on whatever civil war happens because of it, assuming it does, the same way we look at slavery. That is not an opinion personally about pro-choice or pro-life. It's an opinion about historical track records.
But do you really think that, like, women are the people that care about the abortions? Do you think that there would be a civil war over abortion? I don't. Like, what woman is going to get out there and go in the streets and fight?
This is exactly the point. People don't know enough about the Civil War, neither do I. When I actually went to Gettysburg for the first time, and in fact, living out here, talked to a lot of people, met people out here who've told me stories, went up to Gettysburg and then actually read everything and talked to a few people. Then I watched this documentary. I was like, wow, what percentage of people in the United States owned slaves at the time of the Civil War? I think it was 5%. So if you came out and said, come on, slave owners, you think there's going to be a fight, a civil war over slavery when the Confederacy is 4 million white population and only 25% own slaves? That's only 5% of the entire country.
But that was also tied up in male ego in that, like, hey, this is our state, or this is what we believe in, whatever. When it comes to abortion, it's a female. That's why when Roe v. Wade...
A lot of people are in the chat disagreeing, saying men care.
But hold on. We're divided by states right now. Some states are banning, some states are enshrining. No, but that's not what
I'm saying. Didn't you notice that when Roe v. Wade was overturned, we had no riots? None. Where were the riots? They just automatically disappeared, right? It's supposed to be one of the hottest issues there, and we had 0 riots. People prepared for them. People did everything. Nope. But when George Floyd gets killed or whatever, it has to. Men are not going to go out and fight so that you can. So that
I'm telling you, you got to read more about the Civil War in that case.
Because I see what you're saying, but the comparison
is that the average Southerner went out and grabbed a gun saying slavery, hoo-ha. The government of the Confederacy was trying to enshrine slavery for sure, but the average Southerner that was fighting was not a slave owner.
But it wasn't a woman's issue. They don't care. Men are not going to get up and fight over a woman's issue.
Well, because abortion is primarily about women being sexually available for men.
But also,
That's why a lot of men don't care about
this is a moral issue of human rights.
No, I agree that it's a moral issue of human rights, but men are not going to be like driven to the streets and like they weren't. They were not rioting in the streets when Roe v. Wade was overturned.
I mean, I didn't even see women rioting in the streets. Not like it's in their nature anyway, but they couldn't get much done if they tried.
There's not going to, I just don't, from what
I saw them dressing up like The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, that's what they do, and they go and shout.
Playing pretend. True. I saw them doing that,
right,
seeking attention, but nothing, there was no destruction.
Seamus made this point several times. He said that in U.S. history, there has never been a conflict seeking to guarantee human rights that has gone towards stripping them away in the long run, right? It's basically, as we've moved forward as a nation and progressed, we've continually expanded human rights, not rescinded them. The argument that it's women's rights to choose it's the same as arguing, in my opinion, that a slave owner has a right over someone else's body. Granted, there's a difference between an unborn fetus and a human beings who are being owned. I think slavery is very, very obviously wrong, and I think we came out on the right side of that one historically. But the argument that someone has a right to choose to terminate someone else's life it's a very, very bad thing. Now, for me, I fall in the more libertarian camp of I also don't like the idea of the government coming in and determining someone has to give their body to somebody else, which makes it an impossible ethical standard that I'm not going to pretend to have the answers to. Because I don't know.
It's a body inside a body. It's two separate bodies,
you have two bodies,
DNAs,
and so you're trying to argue about civil rights. But the way Seamus put it, many other pro-lifers, is that the temporary displacement of the woman's, the woman's life for the permanent life of the baby is the proper outcome. Meaning, killing the life of the baby to help the woman, to save the woman 9 to 10 months of suffering is unequivocal. Or you know what I'm trying to say?
It doesn't balance out.
Right. They're arguing that it's unfortunate the woman has to suffer, but the baby gets to live a full life of 70 to 80 years, whereas you can kill a baby with no life just so the woman doesn't have to go through 10 months or so.
9 months of
well, I say 10 because there's before and there's afterwards, there's postpartum and there's things like that. So there's going to be this period for women. But anyway, look, my political opinion is not, and it's funny that I can say this because, like, imagine being in the time of slavery and being like trying to be a centrist where you're like, well, I personally think it's wrong, but I'm not going to abolish it. I understand the position I'm in, especially historically, but just reading about the Civil War, reading about how no one cared about it. Like, this is the crazy thing. The abolitionists were extremists. They were a small, tiny faction no one cared about. And it was like 5% of the country that actually had slaves. And so it was rich, white, southern slave owners that made up, it was about 25% of the southern population, which ultimately, because it's a small population, and most people didn't care. I was watching a video talking about the politics, the papers, the propaganda, and it was like people in the North didn't care for war. Here's a really great example. The Emancipation Proclamation didn't actually abolish slavery in like 3 states. Only the states that were in rebellion against the Union. And so Lincoln was actually promising like Maryland and I think Missouri the right to keep slaves because they weren't rebelling against the Union.
Didn't Lincoln also want the repatriation of former slaves?
What do you mean?
Like, he wanted African slaves to be repatriated to their home countries.
Liberia?
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
Not just
pretend to know.
Liberia, but like...
No, there was a thing that they would send groups of them back over to Africa and repatriate them.
But anyway,
yeah,
are you
she's
like,
right.
are you suggesting though that a civil war kicked off by a federal decision on abortion would maybe be more destructive to the country because abortion affects more people than slavery ever did?
No. What I'm saying is people are saying right now abortion can't, like, there's not gonna be a civil war over abortion. Like, nobody cares that much. It's like, okay, go read the history of the Civil War and see how many people cared about that issue.
Nobody cared about that. Yeah,
There were a lot of people. Hans Christian Heg, we talked a bit about him because he was a foreigner who fought and died for the Union. Abolitionists were real. John Brown was real. Depending on your perspective on history, he was either a hero or he was a terrorist. I mean, these are crazy stories. You think about. I want you to imagine this: a guy goes to gets a bunch of his kids and his friends and family and gets guns and goes to an abortion clinic, walks right into the doctor and blows his head off. That's John Brown. Was John Brown a hero because he was doing that to slave owners? He walked. There's a story about how he went to he was I think it was in Kansas. He didn't care to ask any questions. He didn't care to take prisoners. He just went up and started killing these people, and he's considered a hero because slavery was so wrong. What I'm saying is, at the time, people in the North didn't care because the North, like, it was a political issue for sure, but people in the North were like, hey, look. First of all, segregation lasted until the 50s. So you need to understand that even in the North, people were very racist and were for segregation and didn't care for doing more. Lynchings persisted until the 1900s. This idea that the North were like great heroes of equality is just not true. My point is look, I watched a documentary on Civil War, so here I'm talking about it. No, I'm thinking that what the Republic, we're looking at states separate staunchly on abortion. Colorado, no limits. Texas, bans. We're seeing these states light up in this way, and I'm just like, man, if the Republicans move in that direction, it's not, I think people underestimate how politics works.
I would say it could be just like slavery was some like tip of the iceberg or tilt the scales type of issue. It's not going to be like a driving factor that sets it off. There may be some power dynamics. There may be some other stuff going off.
And that's exactly
fine.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff that I've been reading about the Civil War quite a bit. Then going to Gettysburg got me to read a bit more and watch this documentary. And the Confederacy was definitely trying to enshrine slavery. The vice president overtly expressed white supremacy as the core, as one of the cores of the Confederacy, like literally expressing his genetic superiority and a bunch of other stupid nonsense. But for the average person in the South, they weren't fighting a war because they had slaves, because they didn't. So what a lot of people were telling me is the South, knowing that, they needed to boost morale by creating other issues, by highlighting other eccentricities of the federal government, presenting conspiracies and things like that.
Robert E. Lee didn't even own slaves and didn't believe in slavery, right?
So here's what ends up happening with the battle at Fort Sumter. It's the fighting that breaks out was not because the North was like, we must march on the South to end slavery. It was 2 years after the start, Abraham Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation, which explicitly said only in rebelling states. So even then, they weren't trying to end it. So it was the start. It was the core, principal reason for the conflict and the paranoia between the South and the North. But the fighting itself was just like tribal hatred And that was its underpinning
production
issue.
too, right? Like the whole reason that the North won was because they held all the means of production, which is what always scares me.
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing, right?
And it's held by the right now.
Yeah.
I thought China is holding the.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I was going to say that is always my thing, and I was like, did we not learn anything from the Civil War? Who wins the war? The people with the means of production, and that goes for antibiotics, that goes for steel production, neon, all the things.
Let me tell you some more stuff that'll freak you out a little bit. A lot of people say, Bill Maher, he says, if there's another civil war, or there can't be another civil war because the Mason-Dixon line would go through Nana's kitchen. It's like, okay, Bill, we get it. You're snide. But anyway, I think it was Robert E. Lee, or I think it was Lee. And these were Union generals. And the question of secession was coming up, and they said, who do you side with? What am I supposed to do? And I think it was Lee who said he could not envision raising his arms against his home state. So ultimately he said, I have to go to the South.
Against Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Against Virginia.
Correct.
So I want you to imagine California and what would happen with the National Guard if California says outright, any child can get a sex change, any woman can get an abortion no matter what. And then the National Guard says, are we going to uphold this? It's clearly in violation of federal law. I mean, President DeSantis has already banned this federally, and now we're forced to uphold it. It's a question for each and every one of these National Guardsmen. You live in California. Your friends are in California. Your mom's in California. Your dad's there. Your shopkeeper. You know the local town councilman. Do you raise your arms against them?
We don't have. It's not against them. We don't have the same loyalty to where we come from anymore at all. That's all gone.
It's not about the state. It's about your friends and family in that state, and whether you're going to be the one rounding them up and locking them in camps as dissenters, or going to be the one defending them.
Yeah, I just
if the Union soldiers were to march on Virginia and go and occupy those towns, would you be the one pointing the gun at your friends and family, or would you be the one defending them?
I mean, how much people have like family that like they're that much? I just don't think that your families are spread out as much as you think they are. Like it's not going to be like, I've got my mom in Pennsylvania and my brother and. I mean, my mom in New Jersey and my brother in Pennsylvania, and like I have to pick. It's going to be like, hey, you guys come with me. We're going to be on the right side of history. We all have our political values that are exactly the same, and we're on a team.
But no one's thinking that.
But
no one's thinking that. It's you being ordered to march into your old neighborhood and tell everyone to stay in their houses while you're holding a rifle, and them being like, get out of here. We've said no to you.
I could do that if it was ideologically aligned.
So we had John Podesta doing that war game in 2020, where I think it was Podesta. You had the Democrats and neocon Republicans basically playing Dungeons and Dragons for politics. And the Democrats advocated in their scenario for the West Coast to secede from the Union if Donald Trump were to win a second term as president. The federal government then says, we are giving explicit orders to the National Guard to go out and stop these people from doing it. And then you have to ask yourself, are you going to protect your family or protect the federal government? That's what Robert E. Lee was basically saying. It's not a question of being like, the word Virginia means so much to me, and the word United States does too, but I was born in Virginia, so I choose that word. No, it's like, yo, I'm not going to point a gun at my neighbor Bill.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. You're not marching on my hometown. It's not going to happen.
You know what's interesting about this whole thing? It's funny because I feel like if California wanted to secede, we'd allow that. But like, I always feel like the left would never let us go. Like they would never let the right secede. Like we would say, all right, you want to go? You want to have California? Go have California. And they would be like, no, you can't go if Texas wanted to secede.
Well, I'll give you the shout out, Luke, on this one, because you keep talking about peaceful divorce, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing.
And that's exactly what the South was saying. An amicable split. And the North said,
we won't let you leave. Right. Like, we
Never.
won't let you leave. And I think that that's akin to the left now and the right. Like, if the right all said, okay, we're tired of your weird policies. You have, this half in Canada and we'll have the bottom half. They would be like, no, you're never leaving. And then once they see that it's great down here, they would come over and invade us anyway.
What was that YouTube channel I mentioned earlier?
What if all history?
What if all history?
Yeah.
He basically said in his video that the right is basically guaranteed to win in all aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Military training, resources, food production, hands down, no questions asked.
Capability in general.
The entirety of rural America is connected, and the leftist America is islands. It's what do they call it? The Democrat archipelago?
Something like that. I mean, he made the point that it's the coastal elite, basically, a similar point to that. But it's true. All the production, be it manufacturing, be it food growth, et cetera, occurs in the center of the country, and then everything else goes out to the coasts.
We still have manufacturing?
We have a little bit.
Marginally.
I don't. Yeah, it's not that significant. A lot of the stuff is just imported because of globalization policies instituted by David Rockefeller. But at the end of the day, it's a hard thing to really talk about, because how do you fix this larger divide that's getting farther and farther from each other? How do you fix people that are becoming more violent against each other for their political ideas? How can you even have a peaceful divorce? How can you have a divorce maybe that even has a mutual peace pact or a mutual defense pact? Is that possible? But it's a hard question to kind of lay out there. Yeah.
It's never been solved.
I don't think it can be solved.
I'm in Gettysburg, and you know what all these people up there are telling me? They give tours and stuff. They said, well, the Civil War was unfinished business from the Revolution, from the War for Independence, from the colonial days. And I'm like, And so what you're basically saying is that all of these major issues that have been affecting the country, they all connect all the way back. It just goes on forever. So you get Civil War, you get Reconstruction. I was reading that there's not even an official date to the end of the Civil War, because some Confederate soldiers kept fighting even though there was the Appomattox surrender. Then you had Reconstruction. Then you had this council hearing. It was like 1876, I think, where there was contested election. So they just had a committee meeting of like, okay, I guess we'll just decide you'll be president so we don't go to civil war again. But then you end up with the Klan. Nathan Bedford Forrest, was he a general in the Civil War, or he was an officer?
A general, I believe.
And
that's
then
Forrest Gump was named after him, technically, that one. Forrest, yeah.
Then you get the Klan, then you get civil rights, and you get all that conflict. And now we're still dealing with remnants of all of that, and fighting is coming out. Granted, a lot of it's washed away. Almost everyone universally in this country opposes racism to a great degree. There's small factions that are still in favor of it. The left seems to be the most in favor, so it's getting weird and murky.
Yeah, I think the best thing we could strive to do is reduce harm any way we can. This is why I kind of advocate for a peaceful divorce, or even just trying to work it out where we don't have a strong federal government that keeps imposing its ideas onto everyone. And I think the more we allow choice, the more we try to get rid of a centralized big federal government that could be Republican or Democrat pushing the ideas onto different states, I think the better off we would be, and the less harm and the less conflict we would have.
I totally disagree. I feel like that's not like a reality situation. I think that there's cycles to every government. There's rise and falls, and there's war, and that is a part of being human, is these cycles of government and control and power, and that we are at a point where it's going to come to a head. There's going to be a fight for whatever is right, and then the cycle will start over again. And I'm like, let's just get there.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think we should try to avoid getting there. I think we shouldn't be racing there, because when Americans start fighting Americans, that's really going to be extremely dangerous and harmful to everyone. And I think we should be doing our best to reduce harm.
In that YouTube video I keep referencing, from What If All History, right?
Yeah, What If All History.
He mentions Strauss-Howe generational theory, and he actually expands upon it, that it's not just in the United States, but in the English-speaking world every 80 years of the conflict. And he mentions a couple more before the American War for Independence. Mm-hmm. And then he also mentions, I think, 3 other books that have, this is really fascinating. He goes through a bunch of different theories that all talk about the past and the ebb and flow of civilization and chaos.
Yeah, great videos.
And they all say in the 2020s, we're going to have chaos. Mm-hmm. And then you have MIT, I believe, who came out and said in the 2020s, they said, what is it? It was like in the 80s, and then 40 years, we're going to see major chaos and strife in the United States. So they're all predicting it. Maybe they're all wrong, and I won't need to eat the beans in my basement.
I don't know if they're all wrong, but I will say that if you look at cycles and trends of civilization and when they fall, it's always with the loosening of sexuality, especially when it comes to women.
Well, civilizations usually have that correlation, as well as the degradation of society, entertainment. A lot of it is just weird, awkward, doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think we are in that phase.
Yeah, because
that fourth turning, as some people reference it.
There's that thought. I was just reading that book. What was it? The Age of Enlightenment, right? Entitlement. The Age of Entitlement. Oh, I keep doing this with the mic. Okay, so the Age of Entitlement. And he says in there, like, there is always a battle of like your personal need for flexibility and sexuality versus the structural need for survival and constraints on your sexuality. And that's like what the story of Romeo and Juliet was, and that there's always that conflict. And when the individual wins out, and that's when society really deteriorates, because you're missing that construction of the family and restraint that you need in order to live in civil society. And so it's really women burning their bras in their 60s that ruined everything for us. But
It's not just in the 60s, though, because feminism started way before that.
I know. But
It was a
started
big
with, like,
movement. That was
witchcraft in the 19th century, really.
Like, you
And
mean
then
like
you can
women
blame-
learning math?
I mean, ultimately, we can blame the printing press for everything.
Oh, yeah. That's
For
right.
everything that's gone wrong.
How do you create a society where people are free as individuals to live and choose as they see fit?
I don't think you should.
have less and less government. Have less people
know.
dependent on government. People dependent on government stay dependent on government because it hooks them in. The government there is not there to solve any problems.
But-
it's there to get people who will need them forever.
But I'm talking about culturally. You think women should be?
I've definitely made a further turn. I guess within the last years, maybe 2 years or so, further to the right. In that, there's another good book that I'll quote, Sariba Mari's book, and he said this great little anecdotal thing. It's and I have kids, so I know. So you bring two kids to the sandbox. They're 18 months old. One kid brings a toy. They're both sitting in the sandbox. The other kid steals the toy from the kid, and the kid says, "Hey, that's mine. You can't have that," and starts freaking out, right? So that gives you a thing that's not taught in society. There's an inherent sense of justice and right and wrong and morality. But a mom comes in, or or a dad or somebody comes in and says, "Yo, we don't live like that. We live in civil society, and this is how." So while I think that you need to embrace the individual and give them some flexibility and some freedom to grow there, I do think that there needs to be some agreed upon, very, moral structure there. And I think that we've gone past that. And everybody has all these dark images about authoritarianism and things like that because we've seen it get out of control. But there's also been a lot of benevolent dictators. There's also been kings that have wound up, accruing sainthood because they were so good to their people. And so I just think that we are so lacking in morality that there needs to be not everybody is capable of. I mean, look around. Look at the supermarket. People aren't capable of making their own decisions on what food to buy. I think that there just needs to be some structure in the society, and it needs to be something we all agree on, and we are far past agreeing.
That's not a right or left thing. I mean, Bloomberg said we should tax the poor because they're too stupid to make their own decisions. He said, well, when we tax them, we can spend the money better because they tend to make mistakes.
No.
Something like that.
Do they mean the poor or do they mean the middle class?
He meant he meant
I'm not
anyone who wasn't
talking
rich, I
about
guess.
personal decisions like that much. I mean some more enforced morality. Some, we used to shame people. We used to, scoff against divorce. We used to, and people have totally exploited all that. It used to be for some basic reason, some serious reasons that people get divorced or leave their family or anything like that, or men would go outside the home or
no
whatever.
no fault divorce was the end of marriage
Reagan.
entirely. Completely 100% marriage no longer exists with no fault divorce.
Everybody lifts up Reagan, right? But Reagan was
was
the
awful.
one.
Gun
Yes.
control.
I had Reagan.
I mean,
You ran Contra? Horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Horrible guy.
I mean, I'm just saying that, I think that there needs to be some bounded morality, and I think that, that sounds scary to a lot of people, but I think that it's the only way out of this.
All right, we're going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? Smash it.
It's a civil war inside of the comment section.
Oh, really?
I love it.
It's
Really?
wild.
It's great.
I can't really.
The little thumbs up under the video player. Become a member at timcast.com. We're going to have a members only show coming up for you at about 11 p.m. They're always fun and they're not family friendly. So do all that. Smash the like button. Share the video. Let's read. Epic Gamer says some breaking news. Penn State canceled Gavin McInnes's event because of a mob of protesters in Black Bloc yelling communist chants. Ford Fisher has a live stream going. It's winding down at this point.
He was there with Alex Stein tonight.
Oh, he was.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because somebody asked if Alex was going to be here. So I asked him, I said, Alex, are you going to be here with me? And he's like, you're going to be on? No, I'm going to be at Penn State.
Where,
Yeah.
where's Penn State?
Not far
Pennsylvania.
away. Pennsylvania,
Not-
Philly.
No,
not-
I know. But it's in Philly?
No, it's like
Right,
an
it's
hour and a half.
Altoona or
Yeah.
something, or-
yeah, it's
no.
like State College.
State College?
State College,
It's like the
Pennsylvania.
center of PA or something.
Yeah, it's not close. But it was funny because I was coming.
But I think it's
whatever.
relatively close to here. Maybe a couple hours.
No, but yeah. So I was like, he's there. McGinnis is there. I can't believe they shut it down. What jerks. Anyway.
All right.
I'll watch that when I get home.
Bill Hughes says VP Harris falsely calls her support of the Minnesota Freedom Fund misinformation. That's true. I watched this video clip. Do you see it? They were like, you've been accused of supporting this. She's like, well, that's just misinformation and disinformation. Because she's a crackpot who doesn't realize that she actually has a tweet up doing this.
Got receipts.
Joseph Lania says YouTube just switched the stream on going live to a Fox News channel. Well, that's not surprising. Make sure you share this video. Be the notification you want to see in the world, because YouTube certainly is pushing us down.
Was that our accident, though? Remember, because we were watching the debate?
No. This is well before the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The accident in question was the monitors got turned off. There wasn't anything having to do with anybody watching.
Right.
Yep. But smash the like button, share the video, be the notification. If you guys share the video, then we don't got to rely on YouTube to notify people, and we can bypass censorship. America 76 says DeSantis is consolidating establishment rhino money, has distanced himself from Trump, and is gaining rhino support. Trump didn't take a salary, make of it what you will. I don't think you can look at everything DeSantis did right now in Florida and think he's going to be bad. You know, I think you look at everything he's doing, you're like, he's kind of doing a good job. My only fear is, would he support war policy? He's got foreign policy experience, that's true. But is his position on it going to be no new wars, no intervention like Trump's?
Probably not.
That's a deal breaker.
So I used to work for this organization, think tank, and he was the head of the Israel Victory Project, which, like, he was the head of the caucus there, where it was like the Palestinians need to admit defeat before we can even start talking about like a two-state solution or a one-state solution. So I definitely feel like if there was something going on there, he would definitely be involved.
All right. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, I was going to super chat about both World War III and Civil War, both escalating at the same time. It's going to get crazy. But since you talked about Dylan doing trans face, I get to ask you about the proper use of my Barbie pouch. I just want to point out two things. Mulvaney saying, like, holding a big handful of tampons and then saying Barbie pouch, I think is indicative of it being a not a serious and like intended to mock, like Barbie pouch. And then as for the World War III Civil War thing, I think it actually is really interesting. And Ian made the good point that the Great War, World War I, was for Russia a revolution and a civil war at the same time.
Yeah,
so the question about who would win a civil war in this country is often improperly answered. Let me ask you guys, who do you think would win if a civil war broke out in the United States? What do you think? Left or the right?
I think the right one.
What do you think, Luke?
Hard to tell. There's a lot of order followers, and there's a lot of institutions controlled by the left, but the right is usually made up of a lot of those order followers, but they do follow those orders.
All right, what do you think, Mary?
I don't know.
Everyone's been weakened, but I think it would be the right. They just have more gun owners.
Serge?
I think gun ownership is one thing. I think that, again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of production in different parts of the U.S., but I think probably the right. It just depends on who would ally, because the thing about the left is they have a lot of ports. They have the ability to then have things traded in from Europe and Asia as well, from both sides of the country.
They'll get China.
Serge nailed it.
Yeah, I think
that was the point I was trying to make.
Okay, so I was thinking if we were like limited to our own.
I get it, but that was the point I make. Is most people think that way,
right?
And what you need to think about is Russia. On a Russian talk show a couple months ago, the pundit said America's falling into civil war. The only thing we need to figure out is which side we're arming. And that's what's going to determine. So one of the big elements of the Civil War was that the Confederates were desperately trying to get recognition from Europe. And that what was happening was the Union was going to these other countries being like, it's an internal dispute. Don't worry, you negotiate with us. And they were like, okay, I guess.
It would really come down to who is China going to send the antibiotics to? Which side?
Well,
Because
who are they going to send the guns to?
yeah,
If China's the manufacturing base and the North had the manufacturing, China is going to be sending machines, tools, replacement parts, and
I feel like the right could like make their own. They're a little more resourceful, but I really think like they're not making their own antibiotics. They're not making their own penicillin.
or vitamin C.
Yeah, it depends on if we could tool up production to make those things in time. That'd be the biggest
Yeah.
thing.
I see China supporting both sides. They're like blow each other up.
Right. Why wouldn't
This is
they?
great.
Why wouldn't they? Makes
Well,
sense.
right. So what they would do is they would want to sow disruption. I don't think that would mean they would fund both sides. I think it would mean they would fund the weaker. So when people say like, oh, the right's going to win, like what if all history is like the right's going to win because they have the military, they have the training, they have the passion. And then China specifically goes to the port cities and arms them to the teeth to create an even battlefield. So we gut ourselves and
And then they're able to win. Yeah.
Right.
Dylans of the world will be like, no, I don't want to break a nail.
No, I think at that point, Dylan drops the mockery of trans people and says, hey, I'm going to go leave the war because I don't want to get killed.
And Blair agrees with me though. Like Blair said
Blair
that-
agrees with you.
Or he's going to be a drone pilot. I could definitely see him kind of pushing buttons.
Let's kick some ass.
I think that's totally
All right. We got one from Falcon Laser. Tim, did you see the video of an MSNBC journalist asking a panel of Trump supporters about January 6th? Clay Travis shared it on Twitter earlier today. We actually have it pulled up. We'll talk about this in the members only show because it is insane. This MSNBC journalist doesn't even know what she's talking about. They're like, she's like, but
Shocking.
someone died on January 6th. And they're like, yeah, one protester. And she goes, a cop died. And they're like, no.
No.
One was like, it was a stroke and it was after the fact. And
I got a bad article written about me for that one. But anyway,
What, really?
Yeah, they said I was saying in a Clubhouse space at one point in time that like he died of natural causes and whatever.
New York Times said that.
This was like right around them or before, and so like the Daily Dot wrote this horrible article like congressional staffer blames Capitol Police for Officer Sitnik's death, and they still leave the article up there and won't retract it, even though everything I said was correct. But
Well, yeah, there you go.
they're the worst.
Fake news.
Fake news.
That's another element of civil war. You've got ideologues who are lying all day, every day, and don't care to fix it. Yeah. And then their zealots believe it because it's still there. And no matter how much you try to tell them, they don't care. They're in a cult. It's a cult, man.
It's sad.
AI says, watch AMC's Rubicon. It's one and only season. Is that about Rome? What's it about? That'd be cool if it was about Rome. Bogus Impression says, for some reason, I'm imagining that when Russia attacks America's infrastructure and manufacturing capabilities, China is going to be surprised when all the bombs land in their factories because all we know, everything in America is made in China. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Let's see what we have here. E. Rodriguez says, I have to disagree with the aforementioned YouTuber. Communists never cared for the poor. They just hated the rich. Orwell wrote about this in one of his books. I may have I'm not trying to misrepresent the guy's views. The point he was making is that the communists were all about masculinity and strength as much as the fascists were. They just had a different view on how to build a system. And I think it was mostly about culture.
Yeah.
Progressive versus traditional.
Yeah.
Pinochet's helicopter tour says, Tim, when it comes to communism and socialism, I have a suggestion that is quite effective, though I'm not sure how to get that many peanuts. Wait, what were you thinking I was going to say? What do we give out packing, like you give out like little packs of peanuts to people that say like vote on them? You throw, to people and it says like vote GOP and they get to eat a couple of them. Peanuts are good, man. Ooh, Uncle Sam says, speaking of looking like, what's up, what's up, Sherry O'Terry? Are we getting the weekend update? I kid. Beautiful and intelligent. Cheers, y'all. Do you look like Sherry O'Terry?
I don't
or
even
something?
know who Sherry O'Terry is.
SNL, I guess.
No idea.
I get the weirdest people. I don't know, but thank you. I guess if he's trying to be nice, not everybody's always that nice.
Okay. Michael Riley says, these are the same people saying Kyle shot black people. I bet Antifa found someone with the same name, gave it to the media without doing journalism. Exactly. So initially when I saw this report about the dude getting attacked in Florida, I did my digging and the left is saying like, oh, he's a fascist. Here's his name. And I'm like, that picture you're showing is like a fat guy and this is a thin guy. And that guy looks Mexican and this guy kind of looks Indian. Maybe it's the same guy. I don't know.
Not that I want to out our side or anything, but we have a couple like little grifters. Like there's one in particular that says like they've gotten hurt or attacked for wearing MAGA stuff and they haven't. Like, cause I was there and saw that they didn't. But like
Hamming it up.
Yeah, like I mean, it happens on both sides. But like this is clearly a different story. This guy's like seriously.
Yeah, isn't
hurt.
that there's photos, man?
Right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awful.
Max Reddick says, Tim, I watched that episode of Electric Dreams last night you mentioned recently. I'm not going to lie. I feel like that main character, no one listening to me. What is happening? My friends, if there is anything you would spend money on to watch Amazon, despite the fact that we all despise it, watch Kill All Others on from Electric Dreams. The show is called Electric Dreams. It is, I believe, the last episode called Kill All Others. It will blow your mind. Seriously, it's so good. You will feel like the main character. So I see you guys writing it down. Have you seen it?
No.
You guys should watch it, man.
I don't watch. I can't tell you last time I watched like TV or a show or anything.
You gotta
I'm
watch
so
it.
lame.
The gist of it is,
Where is it?
Amazon Prime. The show is called Electric Dreams. Philip K. Dick stories. The last episode. I think it's the last episode.
I'll watch it because you told me to.
You need to watch it. The gist of it is, it's this like factory worker guy, and he's watching a political debate. It's a political interview, and the president or the presidential candidate says, you know, I'm campaigning to reform schools, to get better wages, obviously kill all others, and we got to get utility prices down. And then he goes, whoa, what? What did they just say? And then everyone's just like, oh, I don't care. It's politics. It's not important. And then slowly but surely, the rhetoric is getting more and more extreme. He then sees like a woman running, screaming, and people are chasing her, being like, get her. And they start beating the crap out of her. And he's like, what are you doing? And they're like, she's an other. And then he goes, I don't care. Stop the violence. And they're like, why are you protecting her? You're an other too. You just got to watch it. It's so crazy. Like, replace other with like person who opposes child sex changes. And then you're like, man, you go to your friends and family, you tell them like, hey, did you see what Joe Biden's doing with gas? And they're like, I don't care. And then eventually they're calling you the extremist on TV like Joe Biden did. You got to watch this episode. You're going to be like, whoa, this is crazy, dude. Crazy. All right. Heron Gaming News says, to add to Luke's point of declining population, did you know there's a place in Italy that rings a church bell when a baby is born? So there's like no one being born. Otherwise the bell would be ringing nonstop, I imagine, right?
Oh, it's probably a small village. Like they're not. It's probably
We're
not
getting,
being rung a lot. We're getting down the weeds.
Well,
there.
the population is dramatically being reduced.
Well, because of low T and bad things in our food, and because men coddle women, and society is falling apart.
Birth control, forever chemicals. I could keep
Correct,
going on.
yeah.
Fatherless homes.
The other thing
All the
is
things,
people need
correct.
to know this, that churches, many of them traditionally ring the bell every half hour. And that to me is, I'm sorry, that's nuts. That's crazy. So we're trying to set up shop in Martinsburg, West Virginia, a physical location. And there's a church nearby that rings the bell on the hour. It's the chimes of the hour on the half an hour.
Banish the demons.
Well,
they bless
I'm just
the
like,
bells.
I'm like,
They banish the demons from the area. Do you not want the demons to be banished from the area?
Sure. I'm not going to ask them to stop doing it. They were there well before I was. I'm just pointing out that like that's kind of a lot. And so like, you know, we have to do recordings periodically. Like, it's impossible for us to do any kind of studio work in that city at all because they ring the bell so often. So you have to be relatively far away from it or build a soundproof studio. And it's like, okay, well, you know, it is what it is. I think they should, if they traditionally do it, I'm not going to try and interfere with what they're doing. I just think it's like, wow.
I just moved like to a neighborhood in Philly, and they ring the bells on the hour, and then
half
like,
hour.
Most half hours, and then like they do extra stuff when it's like service time and stuff. But I love it. Like it just makes me feel like I don't know, I'm somewhere happy and safe. So
I mean,
like
it made a whole lot of sense back when there were no clocks or anything. You're like, I wonder what time it is. And you hear and you're like, oh, it's 3:30.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. But I get your problem.
All right. Scott Knowlton says, Tim, did you see the story Luke reported on today about the lady in the cop car getting hit by a train? What? No, but I know that story was from a couple weeks ago, right?
The dash cam footage came out recently, and I did a video on it on my YouTube channel on We Are Change, and it's just absolutely freaking crazy. The police officers in Colorado handcuffed a young woman, put her in the back of a squad car that they parked on train tracks. And they see a train coming.
And they go, run!
And they run away. Excuse me, sorry. They served and protected very well the situation by running out of the way and let this poor woman be hit by a train.
Crazy.
Absolutely insane case. The video is absolutely mind-boggling. And the officer who did everything paid leave. That's absolute criminality to the highest degree.
This is why I can't be back to blue.
Yeah, this is why you can't you trust anyone in authority, and you should always question authority and try to hold them accountable no matter what the situation is. And if this is what police officers are doing, imagine what your politicians are doing.
Right.
I mean, these are just some bad cops, man. Just a few bad apples.
Just one bad apple that gets to the other bad apples, and then you just got yourself.
But look, as it gets worse and worse, any cop that had any semblance of honor or talent is quitting.
Right.
And that's been happening over the past several years. So, of course, now it's
or
going to
even
get
just
crazier.
self-preservation because you don't want to get charged with something.
Totally.
There's a video of that cop, I think it's in Portland or Seattle, and he pulls up and he goes, "You guys won, I quit, I'm done, I'm quitting."
Yeah.
And so then what do you see? You see videos like this. Now don't get me wrong, we've seen videos like that well before there was any demoralization of cops. I'm just saying, expect to see it get way worse.
Yeah.
People are asking in the comment section, she did live. Miraculously,
Wow.
she survived,
Wow.
but she had some very serious injuries that she had to deal
Well,
with.
what happened was, the train hit the car and she was standing there and the train smacked into her and then the train flipped over and then crashed and she stood there like in the movie
The
Hancock.
report I read was that she was screaming for her life as police officers were running away from her.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dude. Why did they park the car on the train tracks? It sounds like they wanted to kill her.
Real smart.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude.
Did you see the video?
How can you
Yeah.
claim it's an
I
accident?
gotta watch it.
I played the video in the beginning of my YouTube channel today on the
I'm gonna
video
go
report I did
look.
today. Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't see how you could argue it was an accident.
I mean,
There's
maybe
no
they
circumstance.
panicked.
No.
Like-
they parked their car on the
Why
tracks,
would they do-
then they grab her, then they bring her into the car on the tracks,
Yeah.
then they leave the car on the tracks and walk away to her car, and then the train comes and go, "Oh no," and they run away.
Yep.
It's like, dude, they were trying to kill her.
The video is just crazy because you just see the train coming. You hear it from far away.
Who is
And the-
recording this?
Dash cam
And body cams.
and
Oh.
body cams from the police officers. The footage was released, and the audit is another YouTube channel released the video as well.
All right, Pinochet's helicopter tours. Says, Tim, look into TIV, or tendency for interpersonal victimhood. A new personality construct doctors have studied. Explains the motivations of squeaky wheels. Well,
I'll look into that.
just got to build a fort in the middle of nowhere and be self-sufficient. Alberto Cheaprays says, Tim, give Mary a political show. Would love to see her angry rants.
I don't get angry about politics. I don't let those things anger me.
That's me. I just don't get angry on this show.
I let stupid celebrities get me angry.
Yeah, you got to check out that show.
John Marafa says, forget red wave, forget red tsunami, red megadon. Megadon, baby? Bring it on. What is that?
Red Mageddon.
Oh, red Mageddon. Oh, man, I went right over my head. Red Mageddon. No, a red great flood. It's like the tsunami, it's the wave is going to be so big, Democrats got to build an ark. You know what I'm saying? Great flood.
They're letting us win, I think.
That's what?
They're going to let us. I'm telling you, it's going to be my little prediction. I said.
I mean, it really does feel like Democrats are sabotaging on purpose. The Veritas video that came out where it's Katie Hobbs's twin sister saying the Democrats are funding the more extreme Republicans.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know what they're planning, but whatever. Cosmic Surgeon says, is it already criminal to write and publish the leak? No, it's not. Journalists, they're allowed to report on this stuff. The Pentagon Papers, the Afghan war logs, et cetera, et cetera. Project Veritas is a really good example. Look how much Project Veritas receives in leaks. WikiLeaks was very much the same. They were journalists. People would send them secure files, they would blow the whistle or just leak stuff, and then WikiLeaks would release and report on it. And WikiLeaks even editorialized. I'll criticize them for some of the editorialization, but they're journalists, same as anybody else, and that's it.
I got a quick question for you real quick. Do you think that there was a ton of leaks coming out of the Trump administration? Do you think that there's as many leaks coming out of the Biden administration, but the media doesn't take them and
Yes.
pick them up? Or do you think that
There's
they're
probably
just more and they're more disciplined?
I think there's probably more leaks, and the media won't touch them.
Yeah.
Because the Trump administration had there's a certain degree of, well, you know what? Maybe it is comparable because there's animosity across the board. But I think the reason I would say that there may be more with Biden is that his insanity and incompetence.
That's what I'm saying. He's got to be like bumping into walls, forgetting
Right.
things, like yelling, acting out, and there's nothing.
And it's not even. It's like
Pooping
with,
his-
right with Trump, people are angry and don't like him, so they're looking for things. With Biden, you can't avoid these things. Certainly, someone said, I was at the White House today. I was just bringing papers from one room. I saw Biden trip and fall. And
Right.
and those are the kind of things where you'd think they leak out, but they don't.
Right.
The media won't report on it.
That's
They're
what I
probably
think.
going, oh, well, nobody really cares about that stuff.
He's running around naked again, trying to catch some kind of dog pooping everywhere.
Doc Holliday says, I love what Trump said. Boo hoo hoo. Well, sure, yeah, whatever. He then said, just unsubscribed from Luke Uncensored.
That's fine. That's okay. You can go right ahead, do whatever you want. You're a free person.
I'm going to vote for Trump. I'll vote for Trump.
But would you
Subscribe to
what would you be
Timcast.com.
cheering
So
on if Biden was doing the same exact thing to Project Veritas? Ask yourself that question and then kind of think about that for
Here's
a
the
little bit.
thing. Right?
That's the point right there is with these leaks coming out that Veritas gets, especially Ashley Biden's diary, in the FBI raid on Project Veritas, what Trump said was trash.
Yeah, well, here's my thing about like the followers unfollowing you and stuff. Right after, the election results came out and it was, for Biden and not Trump, and everybody was like, oh, and there was like this big uproar. I said on Instagram or somewhere, I was like, hey guys, like, you know what? Let's just support our president. Let's all show up on Biden's inauguration with our MAGA hats and like whatever. Only because I've been around so long that I know that these things are not easily overturned. People are like, we would never want you in our corner. You're not a fighter. I was like, what? You're not a real Trump fan? I was like, are you kidding me? If you are not like, if you don't have this like blind allegiance, all of a sudden they're like swearing you off. God forbid you have your own brain and you have something different to say. It's not that I don't love Trump. I just know how corrupt the system is and that it was never going to work out in his favor. So now you're just going to say I'm not a fighter, I'm a quitter? Nobody's saying that.
Worshipping any politician is just cringe. And if you think one person's going to solve all your problems, you're not paying attention.
The cringiest thing that really annoyed the crap out of me was after the election, people were like, March 3rd's the real day. Trump's coming back. And then April 17th's the real day. And I'm like, stop. It's not real.
Yeah.
But, and then it took like a year before people finally stopped saying that the arrests were coming. And I'm just like, and so that's the thing about the fraud narrative is that people don't understand that it's shifted dramatically over the past 2 years. Initially, the whole narrative was very much like servers and Chinese ballots and like watermarks.
I'm not saying that all of that stuff isn't true. I'm not saying that that there wasn't a significant amount of fraud to overturn the election. There's just no way to prove it. And there was no way they were going to let you prove it. And if you even look at the way absentee mail-in ballots are done, it comes in an outer envelope, right? Then it comes with another one that you sign, and then the paper one. Once they separate those, you can never match them back up. We don't know who did what. It's never going to be provable.
That's not even the issue at all. The problem with all of that stuff is that certainly the provability, the year of abandoning it, all the reports and research and everything that we've even talked about on this show, going back to when it all led nowhere. And now what you have is you have like Dinesh D'Souza and you have like the ballot harvesting stuff, which is always what we talked about. The shadow campaign to save the election from Time Magazine, the procedure and policies and those changes that actually had a huge impact, and the month-long voting that's happening now. Those are things that need to be sued over, and you need to go to court to challenge the procedure and the policy. But anyway, my point is not to rehash all that stuff. It's that some people are just so fervent that they believed all of that, and it's just like, come on, man, look, Trump's a guy. I think Trump's pretty good. I think No New Wars was absolutely incredible. The best response we got in the super chats when Dave Smith was here was, these problems were created over 100 years. We won't end them overnight. And I'm like, that's absolutely, like, voting for a president that didn't start any wars and actually was working towards peace is like as good as we're getting right now. If we're advancing, I mean, imagine you're at one end of a football field and you got to get to the other side. And so you're waiting for someone who can throw you 100 yards versus just taking one step at a time. So what's your choice? I'm going to stand right here until someone can toss me that full 100. You're a human. You weigh too much. It's never going to happen. You can't move the monolith like that.
Meanwhile, he's going in the opposite direction, according to my opinion. And you got to stop worshiping politicians and start believing in yourself.
No New Wars is the opposite direction.
He almost got us in a war with Syria, with Iran. He bombed a country. He went further than Barack Obama did with his foreign policy, especially when it came to Ukraine.
I like that better, though.
Right?
He was unpredictable. You know that you have people like this in Biden. Putin would have never encroached on Ukraine at all.
Trump was getting our troops out of Syria and Afghanistan. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he
was not getting any troops out of nowhere. He talked a good game. He did promised a lot, but he got John Bolton. He didn't. The troops are still there. No, John Bolton was still calling the shots there.
But he sacked Bolton, right?
Yeah, 200 on the record, but how many special ops, how many other drones were flying overhead, how many other military operations were still going on there?
You can't accept, is like I said, taking one step in the right direction. You can't tell me that No New Wars is going the wrong direction. Okay, Luke, you want more war? At least one new war? That's the right direction?
It's limited proxy war, okay? He didn't officially declare a war, but so didn't Barack Obama. Barack Obama didn't officially declare a war. You're playing semantics here.
Okay,
but he did finance a whole bunch of rebels. He did finance a whole bunch of overthrows, right? So the argument is still there. Some parts of his foreign policy...
You're arguing for absolute revolution where I'm arguing for...
I'm arguing for holding people accountable for actually doing something, bombing other countries.
It's utopian, dude. I'm sorry.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
You don't bomb a country because your daughter cries, okay? And
that's a straw man argument that I didn't make. The point I made is the Abraham Accords and the peace deals...
He bought off countries. That's the Abraham Accords are him buying off countries.
So what?
It didn't amount to any kind of
Peace
legitimate change, in
through
my opinion.
purchase, fine. If we're getting if he's trying to get our
it's
troops
not
out of Syria,
peace. It's just like, hey, we'll give you a little bit of money, let Israel fly in here. He's like, okay, cool.
Are we worse?
How do you
better foreign policy wise? Are we worse off now or
Worse.
better off?
Absolutely worse.
Absolutely worse.
Yes,
by like
absolutely
light
worse.
years, right? Was he the best one that we've had in years as far as foreign policy is concerned?
As far as foreign policy,
Okay,
with
so
John
then what
Bolton
are you
at the helm,
complaining
I don't know.
about? Yes.
No, I don't know. I think that's up for debate.
Who was better? Who was better
debate.
than foreign policy? Bill Clinton,
No.
Barack Obama, George W. Bush,
No.
Reagan.
All of them suck. All of them.
All of
them took money that we didn't have, spent
not
it,
my
and
question.
printed it, and gave it to the military-industrial
gish-galloping.
complex.
Answer
No.
the question.
Giving money to Saudi
Answer
Arabia
the
to
question.
commit the human atrocities in Yemen.
Answer the question.
What's the question?
Who was better than Trump on foreign policy?
I can't think of. I think all of the foreign policy has been atrocious.
Okay,
I'm not. I can't look at dog crap. I can't look at dog crap. Be like that's a
You
little bit
can
less
say
dog
which
crap.
one stinks the least.
I'm gonna pause you right there and say I think you're being disingenuous. I can look at a pile of dog diarrhea and be like, that's substantially worse on my carpet than that thick corn turd.
Okay, but let's be honest here. We're
If I had a
arguing
dog-
about dog shit,
Right. Listen.
So it's all dog crap.
If I had a dog,
we agree on that point.
That every year would crap on my carpet, and it was a variety of diarrhea, and then one day all of a sudden it's thick corn crap. I go, well, it's still bad, but we're moving in the right direction.
And it's easier to clean up.
That's my point.
Is it?
You can pick it right up and be like, well,
Yeah, you can.
Well, it depends on what the dog also had.
Look, man.
We're playing. Well, look, I appreciate the debate and I appreciate the conversation. There's a lot of things that we should be, of course, discussing when it comes to this. Foreign policy is extremely important. I think he could have done a way better job.
Nobody's really disagreeing with that, but he's
I think
certainly the best that we've had.
His drone policies, his military-industrial complex spending, him giving weapons to Saudi Arabia, committing the atrocities in Yemen, the conflict
That's
with
par for the
Iran, the
course.
conflict with Syria.
Par for the course.
You're
Par for
making
the course.
excuses for the
No.
same policies that Obama was doing that he continued.
So it's like I said, you're in the end zone of a football field, and Luke's saying because we're not getting
What's
Granted,
different
right to
from
the
what
end.
Trump and Obama did? What's the difference?
So
What's the difference? I'm asking you a question.
Getting our troops out of Syria, setting the deadline for getting out of Afghanistan, crossing into the DMZ in North Korea, sending weapons to Ukraine, you can argue is bad, but it was getting us out of the conflict and saying, it's you now, you do it. Telling NATO to pay their fair share. Donald Trump was very much like, I don't understand why we're at war in these places. And when he tried to get all of our troops out of Syria, every last one of them, the executive branch lied to the American people, and they lied to Trump to keep secret troops on the ground. It's insane.
I'll be intellectually honest. I concede on North Korea. I concede on NATO spending, even though he pushed for it. But at the same time, the effects weren't there as he was sending lethal weapons and escalating the situation.
My point.
But I concede on North Korea 100%.
My point is not that Donald Trump came in with a magic wand and saved the world. My point is, it's the best foreign policy I've seen in my life from a president. That doesn't mean it's good. It means it was moving in the right direction. It was pulling things back. Even if it was 1 inch on a football field, it is better. And when Tulsi Gabbard endorses Biden, I don't buy it. Tulsi Gabbard knows the problems of the regime change war. It was her campaign thing. It's one of the things I focus on. And Donald Trump is like, I promised this. I'm going to try and make it happen. The increase in drone strikes, it's bad for a lot of reasons. But it was happening because we were pulling our operations out of the Middle East, and we didn't want the Taliban and other groups like ISIS to storm
He
in.
made arguments about killing civilians.
He made an argument about jailing journalists. It's bad.
Yes, but
Barack
he also
Obama did it.
made sure that there was no transparency with his drone program. With Obama, we know how many people he bombed. We know he bombed weddings. We know he bombed hospitals. Under Trump, we don't know because Trump classified a lot of
Let's
that
do this.
information and gave the power to drone bomb people and to assassinate them to the Pentagon, which is crazy.
You're not arguing in the same area that I'm arguing. I'm arguing that we know Trump did bad things, but it was to a much lesser degree than we've seen from any other president in the past, in my lifetime.
Debatable. We're on a scale here.
Well, who's on par?
Like, there's nobody better. You can't name. Look, I'm not saying.
But
right.
we're not really talking about a lot of great things here.
We'll have to
This was
save
my
it.
favorite part, then. This was like the most interesting. I like when it gets heated.
It
so.
should get heated, and,
All right,
and I'm
let's
all for
grab
this conversation.
Let's grab one more, and then
And then I'm going to warm up because it's freezing in here.
It is
My
cold.
And then
fingertips are cold.
and then we'll go to the members only. James Eaton says, my family didn't join the fight until the Union graped the women in Newmarket, VA. It was never a fight for slaves. It was a moral war against Northern aggression. Next is moral war to save the kids. There's a lot to break down there. let's definitely talk about this as members only, because I'm going to go ham, because I was like...
That's a lot to unpack.
I've been reading a lot of
tables.
Civil War stuff over the past couple of years. Obviously, there's a drinking game whenever Tim Pool says Civil War. And then going to Gettysburg and actually going through everything. And not only that, but over the past weekend, 2 weeks ago, I went down the C&O Canal, reading all about everything that was going on. Crazy, awesome stuff to read. Horrifying history. Smash the like button. Subscribe to this channel. Would you kindly smash that like button? Become a member at timcast.com. We're going to talk a lot about all of this stuff, because we had this clip from January 6th. I want to talk about Civil War. I want to go off on all of this stuff about, things I'm learning. So that'll be at timcast.com at about 11. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me at Timcast. Lisa, do you want to shout anything out?
No, nothing. You can just find me at Lisa Elizabeth on Twitter. I guess that's where I'm most active right now.
Lisa, that was great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to know what I really think, you could go on lukeuncensored.com. And if you think my comments about Donald Trump were spicy, wait until what I said about Ben Shapiro today. lukeuncensored.com. I love the comments. I'm always in the comment section. And if you think the negative comments hurt me, you have no idea. They fuel me. I love them. I love the debate. I love the discussion. Let's challenge ourselves as much as we can right now. And hey, if you think I'm wrong, show me the evidence. Let's actually debate this. Let's actually have an honest conversation about this. I love it, and I love being able to express these ideas. Thank you so much for having me on. Ghost Girl.
Well, if you're tired of talking about dog crap and Civil War, then maybe subscribe to Pop Culture Crisis on YouTube. We go live Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. We talk about fun things like movies, celebrities, TV shows, all of that entertainment news. We have fun over there. If you send a super chat, you can shoot money at us. It's fun. So go subscribe over there. And if you want to see pictures of me on the internet, then you can follow me on Instagram at Mary Archived. If you want to hear my inane thoughts, you can follow me on Twitter, also at Mary Archived.
We never talked about the Katy Perry eye thing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You can-
Members
the
only.
video where
And
like
then-
eyes wigging out.
Yeah, whether it was glue or not.
Yeah.
All right, deal.
I hope you guys liked that one. That was pretty wild.
I had
The
fun.
chat was spicy. Anyways, have a
I'll
good
read
night,
it
y'all.
tomorrow. You leave your chats up so I can read them later? Because
I
I
don't know.
will go
I'll
back
take
and
it down.
read
I
all
just-
of them.
They're all on there.
Okay, good.
There's
Yeah.
a lot.
I'm excited.
I'm in there.
I like the bad ones too. I find like the one good one and I hang on to that one the whole time. So I don't care about the bad ones.
Hate comments are funny.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Bring
they're
it.
great.
I love it.
All right, everybody. Head over to timcast.com, become a member, and we'll see y'all there.
Cheers.